We did it, folks. You're tuning into the Canary Cry News Talk live stream, pre-stream. Congratulations to Shield Labs over on YouTube for the first comment of the day award. And that's right, I said YouTube. Now, here's the thing, folks. I'm not mad. I'm just a little disappointed. We got way too many people sending us messages last week asking if we were going live. Why did we stop doing the show? Well, we didn't. We did the show the whole time. But those of you who have not subscribed to multiple platforms or joined the mailing list, just relying on your YouTube notifications, you didn't get to watch the show. I'm sorry. It's a bummer. I'm not happy about it. I'm just saying, you got to listen to me when I say follow us in multiple locations, because you never know when we'll disappear from YouTube. So go ahead, follow us on twitch.tv/Canary Cry Radio, DLIVE.tv/Canary Cry Radio. Join the mailing list at canarycrynewstalk.com. Click into an episode there. Join the mailing list. Folks, when we go away from YouTube, you gotta follow us in other places. All right. Anyways, we're about to get started here. So as usual, make sure to stay hydrated. It's very important. Keep those cells moving and flowing, baby. Okay, let's get going.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is April 19th, 2021, episode 326. And today, the cloned horsemen. And you know me, I'm not a centaur warrior. I am your best buddy, Basil.
And this is Gonz. I'm not a Scythian, but I am your Asian provocateur for Christ. Welcome to the podcast where we praise Jesus while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. And we're back on YouTube.
Yes, for now.
For now.
Yep, the warning went out. We got another strike on YouTube last week, and then that strike, our timeout was going to be over yesterday when we immediately received another strike. As we've been saying, once the target's on your back, it's a bumpy ride after that. We did, thankfully, we were able to get that strike repealed deservedly. And here we are. We're back. But this does serve as a big warning to all you YouTube viewers. We received multiple messages. Now, look, I'm not mad. I'm just saying I love all of you YouTube viewers. But you must follow on other platforms and join the mailing list because too many of you did not see any YouTube video come up, did not check the social or not on the mailing list, didn't check any other platforms, and you missed a whole week of shows, okay? So go ahead and take our advice. Follow us all over the place and join the mailing list. But other than that, Gonz, what else is going on?
I like how you talk to them like they're little children. Okay.
Oh, look. I'm just confused. At this point, I've said everything I possibly can to make sure that people get the show. It's up to them now. Or maybe it's up to other listeners, other viewers. You got to get your friends to follow us in multiple places, because we were lucky. I'm very thankful that the yesterday's strike did not stick. I think that they made the right choice there, deservedly so. But you never know if that's going to keep happening. So, anyways. Yeah,
it was a second medical misinformation charge by YouTube. And our repeal basically was just that, hey, we're not claiming to be medical authorities here. We're not telling anybody to do anything with the vaccines or the virus.
Nope.
We're just reporting the news. We may share some.
is read the mainstream news.
Yes.
And people make up their own decisions from there. I do want to mention Luke on YouTube keeps saying that we weren't on DLive either last week. We were. We had plenty of DLive viewers. Titus Frost and his pirate crew were tuning in. So I don't know. Maybe you're following the wrong DLive stream, but we were on DLive. Okay, enough about that, Gons. Let's jump into it.
Okay, well,
how was, yeah.
I was going to say the weekend was great. We took the pictures. We have my samurai garb pictures.
Oh, good.
Yeah. The only problem
I can't
is,
wait to see those.
Yeah, the only problem is that I didn't get one just of me. A lot of them were just me and my family, so I don't want to necessarily dox my family at the moment.
Sure.
So,
well, we can put googly eyes on your whole family.
I could.
And then this is it'll be our couple's portrait. It'll be Gons in his samurai gear, and then 2 tiny Basils, and then 1 female Basil.
Yeah. Well, I got the older one too, so it's.
Oh,
it's
yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
And then 1, young adult Basil.
Right. And then, of course, the wife thought she was invincible after she got a little bit of a dose of what it's like to be samurai and sprained her ankle jumping off the back of a truck. So, good times. And we just learned no fracture, so that's good.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Give her my love. I went to the movies. To an actual movie theater.
A theater. Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. I'll make the long story short. I saw Nobody, the one with Bob Odenkirk, which
when
I
movie.
saw.
Okay, I thought you meant you saw nobody there.
Oh,
and you just by yourself in your googly eyes in the theater sitting there.
Yeah, no, it was me and the 3 Monties. They let cats into theaters now, and there literally was nobody else in the theater. It was a good time. But first of all, I do want to say they were showing Godzilla versus Kong. And I just walked past one of the theaters playing Godzilla versus Kong, and it just felt and sounded way more intense. I regret streaming it at home. Should have saw it in the theaters. But I saw Nobody. Are you aware of this movie? No,
I'm not.
Okay, so the long story short is it's a movie. It's kind of like the perfect pandemic dad movie. It's about a guy who's a dad, and he's kind of living this mundane life, doesn't really get respect from his family, and then his house gets broken into, and he does not, he has an opportunity to bash the robber with a golf club, and he doesn't do it. And then everybody thinks he's a real wimp, and he gets even less respect in his whole life. But then turns out that he goes on a whole rampage. It's basically if John Wick were a dad, and it was all based off of earning the respect of his family.
Cool.
Instead of cool movie. Enjoyed the experience, but I will say this: those who have been listening, I'm pretty critical when it comes to movie films, as they're called, and
moving
picture films. This film was rated pretty highly, I think close to 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, it must be good. Let's go check it out. It was good, and I would see it again, but the symptoms, the evidence of the industry, the film industry dying is so evident. The writing, I'll say this, it's a good movie. You should watch it. I'll say this. If you're a dad who likes John Wick type, if you fantasize about being able to beat up Russian mobsters and, protect your family and earn the respect of your son, this is a good movie for you.
The actual Russian mobsters in the movie?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of Russia recently in the news. Yeah. A lot of Russia today in the news.
Mm-hmm.
We'll cover it.
No, this was totally part of the setting up of the mainstream news narrative. of, Russia is the enemy was definitely followed through with this movie. It starts with all the stuff I just said, and then it gets into Russian mobsters and this whole thing. But the writing was not that great. Even, some of the acting was kind of not that great. It had evidence of lower budgetry than we are used to with Hollywood. Okay. But Bob Odenkirk, he's a great actor. So anyways, there you go. There's my review, my very short review of this film.
That go nobody cares about.
I think people care. Oh, nobody. You're funny. People care. People need this advice, Gons, especially in days like these.
Well, I got better advice for people watching the show right now.
Like, subscribe, bell button, all. Like, subscribe, bell button, all.
Okay, that's right. Go do it. Like, subscribe, bell button, and all. But more importantly, follow in places other than YouTube.
Yeah, and especially because YouTube, of course, Susan, our friendly CEO, and just received a Freedom Expression Award, Free Expression Award.
Oh, for all that wonderful work she's done in protecting people's First Amendment rights to free speech.
Yeah, so she was on this channel to do an interview with a blind girl who has who does like makeup videos or something like that. I don't know. But I clipped some stuff because I thought it was very interesting, very telling of what's going on. I have 3 clips here. We're going to run through them very quickly. This first one is just an introduction to the entire Free Expression Award for Susan Wojcicki of YouTube.
I'm so excited to be here tonight to present Susan Wojcicki with the Free Expression Award. As the CEO of YouTube, Susan is facing some of the most critical issues around free expression today.
Video has never been easier to create, it's never been easier to watch. And so we think about ourselves as a platform for the next generation of media companies to be able to create content.
Did you see that, Basil? There's a flippy robot arm, for those of you watching, that comes down and places the play button inside the YouTube logo.
I did not see that. I wasn't looking at the stream.
Media companies to be able to create content and to distribute it to the world. And I also really care deeply about the freedom of expression and the fact that people all over the world can use it to tell their story. It's incredibly important that we have a responsibility framework. And that has been my #1 priority. We're removing content that violates our policies. You can go too far, and that can become censorship. And so we have been working really hard to figure out what's the right way to balance responsibility with freedom of speech. We realize we have really broad reach, and we want to make sure that we, as a platform, are using it for good. I know I can make it better, and that's why I'm here.
Oh, Susan, you're so brave.
You can make it better, Susan.
So brave.
That's funny.
So yeah, the flippy arm obviously in there, and I have this clip here. Susan's background. She should know better, really. Her parents immigrated into this country from Poland, and she talks about a little bit of it here.
On both sides of my family, they came to the United States because of the need or different kinds of persecution. On my father's side, it was due to political persecution. My father came from Poland, and for a variety of reasons, after World War II, it became important for them to leave. And my father escaped from Poland and wound up coming to the United States. And then on my mother's side, they came to the United States for religious persecution. And so I've just seen the real benefits that freedom of speech has, as well as representing all people of all different backgrounds and all different perspectives. And that the freedoms we have, we really can't take for granted, that we really have to make sure that we're protecting them in every way possible. And I feel, because of my family history, a deep connection to those freedoms. And I'm very thankful for the freedoms that I have.
So,
okay. What's in the background that you're seeing? So for those who just listening, she's sitting in her, I don't know, some sort of den. You got a couple chairs. And of course, the obligatory bunch of books.
What else?
I can't. Is there a secret book in there I can't see?
Oh, it's hard to tell what books she has on the shelf. They're pretty
Okay,
far
on the
away.
left, I see some sort of sculpture.
Yeah.
There's some sort of black globe thing up on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not seeing it. What is it?
I don't know. What is there? Are people seeing things in the background?
That's what you said.
No, I didn't say anything about the background.
You said you got to watch out what's in her background. Oh, you're talking about her family background.
Her family background, yeah.
Oh, you said something about background.
No, her background, like her where she comes from.
Trying to read all these little books. I'm like, what does Gon see?
No.
You know, because of like Bill Gates when he had How to Lie with Statistics and stuff like that. They love doing these little messaging with the books in the background.
Yeah, I don't know that she has explicit messaging here in the background. I'm sure somebody can come up with something if they wanted to, but that's not what I was getting at. I was getting at her father escaped political persecution. Her mother escaped religious persecution. So she understands, you know, and respects the freedom of speech and all this. And then, of course, she doesn't really practice it. Here's another clip. This is the last one here. You got one more? Okay. Something to say?
I just want to say, a bunch of people in the chat also thought you were talking about
something. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Okay,
yeah. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I have the audio audience in mind. Mm-hmm. But, okay, so this last clip here I have of her. She talks about the 4 R's. I think she calls it like the responsibility something or other. And listen to the 4 R's.
And we call this whole work the responsibility work. And we actually talk about the 4 R's of responsibility. If I sum it into these 4 different R's, the first one would be remove, which is that we're always updating our policies. And when content is violative of any of the policies, unfortunately, we need to remove it. And so we removed 9 million videos last
9 million.
quarter. And almost all of them, over 90%, we remove with machines, which is good because it means if there's content that's violative.
Okay, so remove, first R, 9 million removed, and most of them with machines. So they don't even have humans looking at these videos that they're removing, which we already knew, but just, you know, for context. So Flippy has been removing our videos, Basil.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Look, Flippy, I know we've had a complicated past, but stop taking down our videos, please.
Find out really quickly. And the second one is raise. So being able to raise up authoritative information. So, for example, in the pandemic, we served hundreds of billions of impressions that came from different health organizations, like whether it was the CDC or the equivalent in countries all over the world. And making sure that people get information from the right medical sources in the case of COVID or news from authoritative sources. So we're working to make sure that we can raise up the information that is valuable for our users. And then, you know, there's a lot of content that technically meets the spirit of what we're trying to do, but it's borderline. And so for that content, we will just reduce, meaning we're not going to recommend it to our users. It's still on the platform, but it's content that is not necessarily recommended by our platform.
That, I think...
Are we not recommended?
We are definitely... That's what's happened to the Face Like the Sun channel for sure. I know Canary Cry, the Canary Cry radio channel has probably just experienced something similar because we're putting up the same content. But we fall under the remove and the reduce so far. And I think I know why they reversed the strike is because I explicitly stated in the appeal that we are not an authoritative source, not claiming to be. And maybe that's why they're like, oh, okay. Well, then.
Maybe. Well, it's good for them to understand what we're doing here.
Well, trying anyway. Okay, so one more R here.
And the last one is reward, which is that we have a higher standard for where we serve our advertising dollars. And that has many reasons. We want to, we want to do the right thing for our advertisers, and they care a lot where their ads show up. But we also want to protect creators like you who have built businesses with really, really valuable content and make sure that that we don't have a situation where advertisers pull their spend because there's some content on it that they're not comfortable with. So we want to make sure we're protecting all the valuable creators like you. So those are the 4 R's of responsibility that we think about as we are, as YouTube is growing and we're continuing to invest. And it's been a huge priority for me at YouTube to make sure that we are balancing the openness of YouTube, but also the responsibility. Thank you so much to the Freedom Forum for having me here today and for this award. I recognize the significance of freedom of speech, and I'm so honored to be here today to receive this award.
Okay,
there you go.
She's so honored.
She's honored.
So honored to receive the award. And notice how that last big R, which I'm not really sure how the last R is advertising, I guess.
Raise. No. It was raise. What was it?
I don't know. But the point being, her big point at the end was all about advertising. And that's because it is the big point, folks. And that's why we don't do any advertising on the show. No affiliate codes. No nothing, baby. Value for value model all the way.
Yep.
And I do want to take this quick opportunity to mention that producership for this let's just say producership for this episode has a lot of opportunity for those producers out there right now thinking about producing the show. Today is a great one. If you've been thinking about it and haven't been able to do it, please become a producer. You can do that by heading to canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support. Really,
that's right.
It's all about convincing people.
So thank you, Susan, for that. Gons, I did pop a little link there down below your clips. And I want you to click on that. This is the website for the Free Expression Awards. Go ahead up in the top tabs, click on sponsors.
Yep.
And you can see here that the signature sponsor for the award show that gave Susan Wojcicki the Freedom of Expression Award, the signature sponsor is YouTube. So YouTube gave the YouTube CEO an award for free expression and protecting the First Amendment.
We should do that for ourselves. We should do the Canary Cry Awards and give ourselves the champions of all things.
Champions of freedom and value. We are an award-winning news podcast.
Wow, silver sponsors at News Corp. NPR falling into the silver sponsors. Wow, interesting. Maybe they're running out of money.
You know what? We did not even get a request. I would have sponsored this. We could have made it down in the I don't even know, the coal level sponsorship or something. But at least we could have bought an award. They bought an award is what happened with Susan here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
CBS News registration sponsors. Wall Street Journal. Okay.
Yeah. See?
Okay. Yeah.
Freedom. Speaking of freedom and YouTube and their cool little video, let's do the Flippy update.
Flippy update. Do you want fries with that?
That's right, folks. We're moving into the Flippy update. And for those who might be new to the show, Flippy is the colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a way to explore all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world, and just how there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm taking this article from digitaltrends.com. The headline is "Evolving self-replicating robots are here, but don't worry about an uprising." And it reads like this, quote, "We are trying to, if you like, invent a completely new way of designing robots that doesn't require humans to actually do the designing," said Alan Winfield. Quote, "We're developing the machine or robot equivalent of artificial selection in the way that farmers have been doing for not just centuries, but for millennia. What we're interested in is breeding robots. I mean that literally," he says.
Weird.
Wow.
Weird.
Wow. See, Flippy is just like a farmer, so stop complaining. Winfield, who has been working with software and robotic systems since the early 1980s, is a professor of cognitive robotics in the Bristol Bristol Robotics Lab at the University of West England. That's UWE. He's one of the brains behind Autonomous Robot Evolution, the ARE project, a multi-year effort carried out by UWE, the University of York, Edinburgh, Napier University, and University of Amsterdam. It will, its creators hope, change the way that robots are designed and built. And it's all thanks to borrowing a page from evolutionary biology. The concept behind ARE is, at least hypothetically, simple. How many science fiction movies can you think of where a group of intrepid explorers land on a planet and, despite their best attempts at planning, find themselves entirely unprepared for whatever they encounter? This is the reality for many of the inhospitable scenarios in which we might want to send robots, especially when these places could be tens of millions of miles away, as is the case for the exploration and possible habitation of other planets. Currently, robots like the Mars rover are built on Earth according to our expectations of the way they will find of what they will find when they arrive. This is the approach roboticists take because, well, there's no other option available. But what if it was possible to deploy a miniature factory of sorts, consisting of special software, 3D printers, robot arms, FLIPPY, and other assembly equipment that was able to manufacture new kinds of custom robots based on whatever condition it found upon landing. These robots could be honed according to both environmental factors and the tasks required of them. What's more, using a combination of real-world and computational evolution, successive generation of these robots could be made even better at these challenges. That's what the Autonomous Robot Evolution team is working on. Quote, the idea is that what you land on the planet is not a bunch of robots, it's actually a bunch of robo-fabs, Winfield told Digital Trends, referring to the ARE robot fabricators he and his team of investigators are building. Quote, the robots that are then produced by the RoboFab are literally tested in the real planetary environment, and very quickly you figure out which ones are going to be successful and which ones are not. Matt Hale, a postdoc in the Bristol Robotics Lab who is building the RoboFab and designing the process by which it manufactures physical robots, told Digital Trends, quote, the key feature for me is that a physical robot will be created that wasn't designed by a person, but instead automatically by the evolutionary algorithm. Furthermore, the behavior of this individual in the physical world will feed back to the evolutionary algorithm, and so help to dictate what robots are produced next. And then it goes into a whole bunch of other stuff. Very interesting article, but very long. Goes into the process of, again, not sending a robot to Mars, but sending a robot factory to Mars that will evolve its own line of robots. Pretty fascinating, huh, Gons?
Yeah, it's almost like you're sending a factory, like a god factory.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Send up a little factory there that, maybe comes out with a basic design. Then that robot explores and then redesigns another robot that gets printed out. And the cycle goes on until the Uberbot is created and can colonize Mars for us. In which case, of course, Uberbot is going to be so welcoming to human colonists and definitely won't see us as a threat.
It's an invader.
Yeah.
We are your creators, we promise.
And this was a really fascinating article to come up because it fits right in with a lot of stuff I've been recently talking about. And if you don't mind, I'll just take a couple minutes. I'm not going to give the whole rundown, but in the context of this, I was talking to you before the show about extended intelligence. Mm-hmm. Extended intelligence, just to give the brief rundown, is sort of how entheogen is a new fancy term for psychedelics, but it has a new spin on it. It's a different, they're trying to change the conversation. Extended intelligence is kind of the same thing around AI, where we think of AI as an artificial intelligence, a sort of singular node of algorithms as one entity. that can be programmed or learn to do a single task for humans, such as, facial recognition or learning how to teach a robot how to move through an obstacle course, something like that. Right. Well, there's a group of sort of techno-spiritualists that don't think that artificial intelligence is really the right way to think about it. The right way to think about it is as extended intelligence, as if it's just another node of intelligence in the hive mind that human beings sort of already make up. And once we sort of hit our human limit of intelligence, we start to rely on extended intelligence, which is artificial intelligence. And it always works into this sort of, the merging of mind and machine and cyborgism and Neuralink. It's all wrapped up in that kind of stuff that we talk about.
Well, I think it's in contrast to artificial intelligence. I think they don't like the word artificial because, it's synonymous with fake or simulated.
Artificial intelligence is kind of a derogatory or simplistic term.
Right.
And they think extended intelligence.
Extended is more like, hey, it's a bridge to more intelligence. We're expanding our intelligence into these machines, and therefore it's an extended form of intelligence, not an artificial or fake version of intelligence.
And it maintains a connection between human consciousness and these robots, which are these extended intelligences, which is sort of their whole goal, is to merge with that. But in the context of this robotic evolution that this article spoke about, a lot of these EI enthusiasts, they kind of think on a similar level, where this extended intelligence, because it is just an extension of human intelligence, is participating in an evolution of this what we would call artificial intelligence or robotic intelligence. And it's very interesting. They go really deep into like an alien invasion, again, on the topic of, all this disclosure and alien disclosure and things like that. A sufficiently intelligent race of beings, of aliens, would not just drop down and make land on the White House lawn and shake Biden's hand. What they would do is sneakily create a system on the Earth that would build robots for them, which is, sort of seeding the ideas of artificial intelligence with human beings, letting human beings create artificial intelligence or extended intelligence, and then, that being the mode of taking over the planet, not through force, but through manipulating these little human beings to create basically have the robots be built on Earth before the actual alien beings show up.
You mean kind of like Revelation 13 verse 14? Because of the signs it was given to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image to the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived.
Boo-yah. And it's so interesting because looking into these guys, that's exactly what they think is happening.
Yeah.
And so just a very interesting little thing that pops up where, there's a lot of, we might say distraction or going on with the idea of aliens invading, coming down from another planet in a UFO with a laser beam, when in fact, as it says right there in the Bible, it's done through deception, and the humans are being used to create the invasion itself. I don't know. I just thought it connected a lot of dots.
Yeah, the robot revolution and the alien concept of disclosure. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, Basil. It's all coming together, and you're jumping on my train, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. And you know AJ's right about it.
We're made by the aliens.
I mean, he's been saying it for years. The other thing, extended intelligence, EI, right, instead of AI.
Yeah.
Man, old MacDonald was right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's been singing E-I-E-I-O for years.
Yeah. This is a free podcast, folks. You don't technically have to pay for this, and you can get brilliant jokes like that. The comedy level is beyond our comprehension.
I'm being serious. I'm telling you, it was a seed in the minds of culture of the children.
Yeah, it is brainwashing children to accept the EI.
And think that it's just a farm, with just some animals. No, not so. It was preparing our minds for the extended intelligent robots who we will treat as pets. or farm animals, folks, or something.
You heard it here. I wish it weren't true, but we just keep rolling out the hits.
Yeah, well, it would be disturbing if it was true, but it's possible that it all plays in. Speaking of disturbing if true, we have a Nephilim. This is the second episode in a row where we have a Nephilim update at the top of the show. So I guess things are quote unquote less pandemic-y, but here we go.
Nephilim update, Nephilim update, Nephilim update. Russia.
All right, this is MSN.com. It's mirroring a dailymail.co.uk article. Russia's defense minister wants to clone ancient warriors.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good stuff. The article states, Russia's defense minister has taken time out from massing troops on Ukraine's borders to unveil a, quote, Dolly the Sheep cloning dream involving ancient royal warriors and their prize horses using DNA preserved in permafrost.
Oh, and the horses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. The horseman conversation. Sergei Shoigu, is that how you say it? Shoigu? One of Vladimir Putin's closest allies spoke about the potential of the extraordinary 3,000-year-old Scythian burials in Tuva, his mountainous native republic in Siberia, not Serbia. Siberia. Which I didn't realize Siberia took up like 10% of all of the landmass on Earth. This is a large area. The ancient Tunag burial site of nomadic warriors, often laid to rest with their horses, is an area known as the Valley of the Kings in Tuva. The ancient Scythian burials in Siberia. Research on the Tuva burial mound, by the way, burial mounds. That's how they were buried, in mounds.
Yeah.
Known as Arzan II began in 1998. Russian
You're
and German...
referring to the Nephilim connection with L.A. Marzulli's research.
Yep, and others. Russian and German archaeologists began excavating the Scythian burial mound on a grassy plain that locals have long called the Valley of the Kings in 2001. The nomadic Scythian tribes roamed the Eurasian steppe from the northern borders of China to the Black Sea region in the 7th to 3rd centuries BC. The Scythians are generally believed to have been Iranian origin and spoke a language of the Scythian branch of the Iranian languages. In the 7th century BC, the Scythians crossed the Caucasus and frequently raided the Middle East, playing an important role in the political developments of the region. When Shoigu, 65, initiated the Russian-Swiss archaeological digs here 3 years ago, a modern-day shaman was even drafted in by scientists to ensure the excavation did not anger the spirits.
Oh, okay. Gotta get those modern-day techno shaman.
Yeah. The defense chief told a session of the Russian Geographical Society, also attended remotely by Putin, on Wednesday, quote, "Of course, we would like very much to find the organic matter."
Sorry, I would like very much to find the gushy parts of horse and man.
It just turned Russian in my head when I was reading that, but it didn't come out that way, so thank you. He was referring to well-preserved remains of ancient people and animals, explained TASS. "I believe you understand what would follow that," said Shoigu in a broadcast by Zvezda TV. "It would be possible to make something of it, if not Dolly the sheep," he added without explaining more of planned genomic research that, quote, "in general, it will be very interesting." The burials were in permafrost, and according to scientists, organic matter should be preserved there. Quote, "We have conducted several expeditions there already. It is a big international expedition. A lot of things have been confirmed. A lot remains to be done. Shoigu has been in the limelight in recent days, spearheading Russia's build-up of almost 100,000 troops. We have a report that says 150,000. Close to Ukraine, triggering fears of a new war. But at this session, he spoke about more ancient warriors. The burial is among the earlier Scythian remains. Greek historian Herodotus in the 5th century BC claimed the Scythians made cloaks from their victims' scalps after victory. The savage warriors are believed to have used their enemies' skulls as drinking cups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, happy people. Legends say they drank the blood of their vanquished foes. The valley contains so-called Tsar mounds from the Scythian era. It is not the first time Shoigu has spoken about finding organic matter which can be investigated by scientists for DNA. While exciting remains have been found, there are still hopes to dig deeper into the mounds and find remains similar to a tattooed princess discovered in the mounds in Siberia's Altai Mountains. That was the one thing that was interesting. These guys had these sleeves of tattoos on their arms and legs, and they resemble like how, you know, people now have sleeves of tattoos on their arms and legs and everywhere. How Dolly was created, it goes into a little bit of Dolly. I guess we can read it just for review. People may not have heard about Dolly. Dolly was the only surviving lamb from 277 cloning attempts and was created from an mammary cell taken from a 6-year-old Finn Dorset sheep. The sheep was born at the Roslin Institute in Edinburgh in July 1996 and announced to the world on February 22nd, 1997. She was created using a technique called somatic cell nuclear transfer. The pioneering technique that Roslin team used involved transferring the nucleus of an adult cell into an unfertilized egg cell whose own nucleus had been removed. An electric shock stimulated the hybrid cell to begin dividing and generate an embryo, which was then implanted into a womb of a surrogate mother. Dolly was the first successful produced clone from a cell taken from an adult mammal. Dolly's creation showed the genes in the nucleus of a mature cell are still able to revert back to an embryonic totipotent state. Am I saying that right? Totipotent?
I don't know. I don't have it.
Meaning the cell can divide to produce all the different cells in an animal. And the article goes on in the original dailymail.co.uk thing. But main point here, this Shoigu literally wants to... I like how he's being kind of coded, but not really, you know? Let's go back to the quote here. Of course, we would like very much to find the organic matter. I believe you understand what would follow that. It would be possible to make something of it, if not Dolly the sheep. In general, it will be very interesting.
Yeah, he's being very, very cryptic. Doesn't want to say we are going to clone ancient warriors to help take over Ukraine, but he's like wink, you know, like the like Dolly the sheep.
Yeah.
That's interesting. They want to bring back the Scythian warriors, the mounted warrior clan to fight for Russia?
I guess. Yeah. And,
you know, when I saw this story, it just reminded me of Night at the Museum. Where,
Ben Stiller.
You know, when Attila the Hun comes back and he's got the centurion there. And look, I'm not saying they weren't good warriors for their time, but you show these guys an iPhone and they're way too distracted to go to battle.
Well, you're talking about a Hollywood depiction here. We know that that's not how it would play out if they came back to life.
I don't know.
Especially if there's no moral boundaries to do anything, they can enhance these guys with some Neuralink. So
I guess that's the question. It's like, what makes them physically different? Like, what makes them better warriors other than their cultural situation?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I will say that they are mentioned in the Bible. Colossians 3:11 talks about it. Here, there is no Greek or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all. So apparently they're human, but their loyalties were not necessarily great. If you go to there's some commentary that suggests Jeremiah 5 here, verses 14 through 17 talks about the Scythians, and it says here, therefore this is what the Lord God of hosts says, because you have spoken this word, I will make my words a fire in your mouth, and this people the wood it consumes. Behold, I am bringing a distant nation against you, O house of Israel, declares the Lord. It is an established nation, an ancient nation, a nation whose language you do not know and whose speech you do not understand. Their quivers are like open graves. They are all mighty men, the Geborim. They will devour your harvest and food. They will consume your sons and daughters. They will eat up your flocks and herds. They will feed on your vines and fig trees. With the sword, they will destroy the fortified cities in which you trust. So they were used as part of God's judgment against Israel, or at least a threat.
This is specifically talking about the Scythians?
That's what some commentary suggests that I was digging up. So I don't think
this was about like what was it? Invaders from the north or something?
You know what? This is in Isaiah 5. I don't think it's the invaders from the north per se, but again, it's just the enemies of Israel. So
yeah, okay.
It could be anybody, but I think a couple commentators over the years have suggested that this is in reference to those barbaric Scythians. So yeah, it's something interesting to keep in mind. And, I went down the rabbit trail of the Scythian, people, and it was very interesting. I found some interesting connections to some ancient stuff here. This is just the Wikipedia page here. Hunor and Magor were, according to a famous Hungarian legend, the ancestor of the Huns and the Magyars. The legend was first promoted in Gesta Hunorum et Hungarorium. The legend's aim in providing a common ancestry for the Huns and the Magyars was to suggest historical continuum of the kingdom of Hungary with the Hun Empire. And then it says, according to Simon of Keza, Hunor and Magor were the sons of Menrot, a mythical giant who he partially identified with Nimrod of the Bible, the great grandson of Noah, the one who led in the building of the Tower of Babel. So that's something interesting that they would connect these guys to, or at least the origin of the Hun Empire, the Hungarians, to Nimrod. And then later here it says, other Hungarian chronicles wrote, the brothers were the sons either of Menrot, that's a giant here, or of Magog, king of the Scythians.
There it is.
So there you go. Magog, we know about Gog and Magog in the Bible, and they appear in the Old Testament, but they also appear in the New Testament. Over in Revelation 20 here, in the verses here 7 and 8, when the 1,000 years are complete, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to assemble them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the seashore. So this is after Satan's first imprisonment. When he's released, he builds an army, and it's called Gog and Magog. So it's very interesting. It's fascinating that there's a connection here, at least mythologically, with these people. A couple more things here, and then I'll let you rant here. The Chronicon Pictum makes Hunor and Magor's son of Japhet, or Japhet, who was a son of Noah in the book of Genesis. And then this is according to, who is this according to? Simon of Keza. He's one of the Hungarian historians in the 12th century. After the confusion of tongues, the giant Menrot entered the land of Havilah, which is now called Persia, and there he begot two sons, Hunor and Magor, by his wife Eneth. It was from them that the Huns or Hungarians took their origins. So again, I don't know. There's just a lot of mythology and connection to biblical references, and it just made me wonder, because they are horsemen, and they're often buried with their horses.
Yeah.
And, in Revelation 9, it talks about the Locust army. And in Revelation 9, verse 7, it says, and the Locust looked like horses prepared for battle. And then, of course, it goes into all the different wild, descriptions with something like crowns of gold on their head and faces like the faces of men. They had hair like that of a woman and teeth like those of lions. They also had thoraxes like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the roar of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. Tails with stingers like scorpions, which had power to injure people for 5 months. They were ruled by a king, the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek it is Apollyon. So I don't know, maybe like a genetically altered, resurrected clone army of Scythians are these like
chimera,
Locust army.
Scythian horseback army.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to resurrect
just add
them,
a little scorpion DNA while in the cloning process, a little bit of locust DNA.
And it just makes me wonder if all of this has to do with the whole disclosure thing. And you're talking about the robot side of things. Mm-hmm. But also just, hey, we're ready to sort of roll out the alien narrative because we're going to start revealing some of these interesting entities, beings, or whatever that we've been creating militarily. Because ultimately, if Russia's talking about this sort of thing, number one, who knows how long world leaders have been trying to do this kind of thing. We heard about the Tomb of Gilgamesh back in like 2000 or whatever, maybe it was 2001. Right. And the United States. Don't you think there's a dark corner of the U.S. military intelligence operation that has gotten ancient warrior DNA and has tried to at least clone or resurrect them in some way?
Makes total sense to me.
Not saying that it's true. We're just saying.
Nothing to see here, folks.
We're just saying that there's a possibility that this stuff is getting ready to roll out, and that's why, hey, we better let the disclosure thing, we better carry that alien narrative along a little further because some weird stuff is about to go down publicly.
I'm just impressed with Russia's ability to have leaders that can talk about cloning super soldiers just out in the open.
2021,
it's a different
baby. World
over there,
2021. Yeah, that would be crazy if Biden comes out and he's like, he's all cryptic about it. He's all, come on,
have
man.
like Marco Rubio or Anthony Blinken coming out talking about
Anthony Blinken.
We're gonna clone these Vikings and fight the Russians. Well, speaking of the Russians, Gons, let's talk about some of the big news coming out from that area. What do you say?
Sure, I think.
Okay. Unless you had more to go.
No, I think that was my rant on the whole thing.
It was good and it was thorough, and it was I would say an equal retaliatory rant to go on this crazy thing. This Russian leader talking about wanting to clone super soldier Scythians.
I'm just making my pledge to be in Russian royal leadership. And,
just watch out. They might take you up on that. You never know.
I don't think so. I can't keep up with them on the vodka drinking. They'll just kick me out after a few drinks. These guys can't handle his vodka, and I'll be gone. So
you have to prove your constitution. All right. Well, I got this article coming from dailymail.co.uk, so you know it's going to be good. The headline is "Satellite Images Reveal New Russian Military Base in Crimea Filled with Thousands of Tanks and Troops as Putin masses 150,000 troops on border with Ukraine." Russia has massed over 150,000 troops along the Ukrainian border and in an annexed Crimean peninsula in a new military camp revealed by satellite images. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell confirmed the news on Monday after talks. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but that's what I'm going to say.
Josep.
That it might be a typo. It might supposed to be Joseph, but they have Josep.
That's how the well, never mind. I'm not gonna say it. It's racist, so I won't say it.
Oh yeah. This is the EU, so it's probably Josep. Yeah. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell confirmed the news on Monday after talks involving Ukraine's foreign ministry and said, quote, "It is the highest Russian military deployment at Ukrainian borders ever." He warned, quote, "The risk of further escalation, it's evident." The camp, located next to Kachik, Kachik Lake on the south coast of Crimea appeared over the course of a month to house Russian soldiers and vehicles that Russian President Vladimir Putin has been ferrying to the region on the back of trains and trucks. Images taken by Planet Labs satellites on April 13th show at least 1,000 vehicles on the site lined up in fenced-off areas opposite infantry tents. Only a fraction of that force was visible in another image taken a month earlier on March 15th. The secondary subcamp is also visible around a mile to the west of the main camp on the shores of Kachik Lake. The camp primarily consists of vehicles in fenced-off pens with a handful of infantry tents visible. Would you be able to pull up like a Google Earth of this Kachik Lake?
Yeah, I can try.
Yeah, let's get like some context about where we're talking.
Well,
here.
there is a map I'm showing that you can scroll
you're right.
down.
I just scrolled down and saw the map, so never mind. Okay. While Ukraine has previously warned that as many as 40,000 new Russian troops have been stationed in Crimea, in addition to another 40,000 on the mainland, it is the first time that a camp housing the force has been pictured. Tensions have spiraled over the buildup of Russian troops around its southwestern neighbor as an intensification of clashes with Moscow-backed separatists has fueled fears of a return to widespread fighting in Ukraine. Then we got the map there. Let's see. Where's this Kachik Lake? Do you see it anywhere?
I don't directly in these images, but...
where are you, Kachik Lake?
Here, I'll try to pull up a Kachik Lake image.
What is that? Is that the Black Sea? That large body of water? I think so. Yeah. Okay, let me scroll. Moscow's military says it is conducting exercises along its frontier in response to moves by Western military alliance NATO that threaten Russia. Interesting. Is Russia not in NATO? Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said last week that, this is the same cloning guy.
Same guy.
Oh, okay. Cloning Meister. Defense Minister and evil scientist Sergei Shoigu said last week that, quote, 2 armies and 3 airborne units were successfully deployed to the Russia's western border, and that the drills would be over within 2 weeks. Ooh, sounds like a threat. Ukraine is pushing the West for more practical support as it looks to deter any further aggression from Moscow. Kiev's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba pressed the EU to prepare, quote, a new set of sectoral sanctions against Russia in talks with his counterparts from the 27-nation bloc on Monday. But Borrell said that there were currently no further sanctions being proposed under consideration. It comes after more satellite images revealed another camp has been built near the Russian city of Voronezh, around 500 miles north of the new camp and 150 miles from the Ukrainian border. Satellite images of the Voronezh camp, first published 10 days ago, confirm it is arranged in a similar fashion.
Did you hear that music?
No.
It was I found this like Russian aerial photography website. It's pretty amazing photography. And the Sasik Lake in Crimea, and it just the music was all peaceful and piano-y.
This beautiful lake. Satellite images of the Voronezh camp. Oh, I already read that. Infantry tents, presumably used by units operating the vehicles, can then be seen positioned in looser formations, just a short distance from the vehicles.
Lucifer? Sorry.
What?
No, you said looser formations. It sounded like you said Lucifer.
Well, we're almost done here. So, okay. Kiev believes there are now more than 80,000 Russian troops in the region, possibly as many as 115,000, a force larger than at any time since Putin gave the order to annex Crimea in 2014. Moscow insists the troops are being deployed only for training exercises and in response to a buildup of NATO troops, which the alliance has insisted does not exist. That has raised fears they could actually be used for an invasion of eastern Ukraine, particularly the Donbass region, where Russian-backed rebel groups are involved in a years-long conflict with Kiev's forces. Observers have also suggested the unannounced buildup could be designed as a test for Joe Biden as Putin attempts to get the measure of his new counterpart. Biden has called for the Russian president to de-escalate tensions and proposed a summit which would take place in Finland in the coming months. The move has been hailed as a win by Moscow after Biden previously took a hard line against Putin, calling him a killer and refusing to meet with him on the basis that he was too busy. As well as seeking support from the U.S., Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has turned to his European allies last week, meeting with France's President Emmanuel Macron in Paris and speaking with German Chancellor Angela Merkel via video link. The pair pledged their backing for Ukraine, but offered little in the way of practical support. Meanwhile, the UK has offered to send 2 warships to the Black Sea as a warning to Putin, according to leaked documents after the US canceled the deployment of 2 of its own vessels in the region. So it goes on, talks more about the sort of massive military movements by Russia and other countries in the area. But I think this Putin testing Biden thing sounds pretty legit to me.
Yeah. It's interesting because we've had this propaganda fed to us just throughout, most of my life anyway, in post-Cold War situation there, that Russia's always kind of the bad guy. It's interesting how they've always been sort of the, kind of a communist bad guy, socialist, whatever. But then in the last 4 years, with the uptick in the, blaming Russia for everything campaign through the mainstream media, there's a lot of people who are a little bit more, sympathetic towards the Russian, just in general, or not necessarily their military prowess or anything like that, but just like,
it's based off of their anti-Americanism.
Right.
They're like so fed up with America that they just sort of inherently defend Russia.
Yeah, it's very strange. Very, very strange.
Well, we noticed this, again, back at the beginning of Canary Cry News Talk in general around 2016, when this messaging of like, all of a sudden, Russia is like a big bad guy again.
Yeah.
And it was, of course, surrounding Trump and his sort of relationship with Putin, which was a very confrontational, especially in the first couple of years of his presidency. But yeah, they just kind of brought it out of nowhere. I mean, I remember doing episodes of this show back when we were doing half-hour episodes of just like cracking up laughing. Like suddenly we're supposed to believe that Russia is this like major enemy again. And, they've never not been adversarial, but this sort of return of 90s.
Return of prominence.
Yeah, this like return of 90s James Bond I don't know if it's propaganda or not. Probably a lot of it is.
It is.
Of, Russians being just inherently evil.
Yeah.
Is kind of a silly thing.
There's multiple ways to look at it too, because we know the infiltration of China into U.S. politics and just everything, U.S. economy. And from a geographical standpoint, you can say China is one of their biggest foes is Russia when it comes to, overtaking the world type of mentality, because they're just, they're right next to each other and they're in the same region. And so if you're Chinese, you're probably going to use Russia and be like, oh, see, if there are political things happening in the U.S. that don't align with what you want, you can just blame Russia and kind of drag them into the thing. But at the same time, you have Russia and China, shaking hands in the background and doing their thing too. So it's not like it's all what it seems to be. But I just think it's weird how the divide and conquer of using Russia and the United States as a boogeyman for so many years. And then we kind of forgot about them because, all the boogeymen were turned to the Middle East, all the terrorists and everything. And then just the return of, like you said, the return. And then the actual divide and conquer of like, it's not Russia. It's just the fake news, and it's like, wait, so are you saying Russia isn't bad? Or, because it just forces people into picking sides. And that's the exact nature of divide and conquer. So it's just interesting to watch.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's sort of the simplistic, propagandistic representation of these geopolitical things. You know, they would have us believe that Putin just all day long and all night, like he's awake at night, tossing and turning, just thinking about America and bringing down America, which is like, yeah, it's certainly a consideration and on the table of things he has to deal with. But you know, with all of these superpowers, yes, there are operations to maintain superpower status with Russia and China and the U.S. especially.
Yeah.
And the messaging of anti-other superpowers, like, for instance, the U.S. and Russia, U.S. and China, and vice versa. But, you know, on the other hand, it's not like a sort of it's not an Avengers movie. They're not so single-minded, as you can see with this movement towards Ukraine.
Yeah.
I mean, Putin has a much closer, much more real military adversary in the Ukraine and NATO. And this is just evidence of, him dealing with more pressing things than, some sort of military action against the U.S.
Yeah, there's different levels of propaganda for the different segments of the population, and they're going to use whatever it takes to get their agenda. It's interesting. It's almost like the elite are just like, ready, set, go. Whoever gets the first clones of the ancient warriors, whoever gets gets the land mass, whoever gets the biggest army, whatever. So it's all just one big human competition here. It's all a stage. But we'll keep an eye on Russia.
Interestingly enough, along those lines, not to discount any threat or negative consequence of this kind of provocation. I mean, you got to remember, World War II was started over Poland.
Yeah.
And, it's, again, as far as like nations in proximity to a superpower, you're just like, oh yeah, it's just Ukraine. I don't know. Here in the U.S., we don't really have a lot of context for Ukraine. If Putin didn't pay so much attention to Ukraine, then we probably would hear almost nothing about it. But, world wars start over these little, aggressions on smaller countries.
Was Russia and China both involved in that the monkey DNA thing? Or the monkey embryo?
The recent one?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I know China was.
I think it was China. Yeah. I don't recall Russia being involved.
Yeah, they did talk about biological weapons, fighting Russia and Chinese difference. I'm looking for stuff. It doesn't matter. It just kind of reminded me. It's always interesting to see, who in different kinds of stories, the world powers are either working together or they just hate each other so much we're at war. It's just kind of silly when you think about it.
And a good example of that is Russia and China. Such a complicated, again, just trying to follow the propaganda from the U.S. is very confusing. It's like, oh, China and Russia are working together to destroy the U.S. Or Russia and China have built up opposing military forces on each other's border and there's tensions. Oh, but no, they really are trying to, take down America. It's like, well, which is it? Are they fighting with each other? Or are they fighting with America?
Yeah, it sounds like a bar fight. Nobody knows. It's like
that's kind of the thing.
You with me? And then somebody gets punched, and then they gang up on one guy, and then he gets hit, and then they punch each other, and it's just a.
Yeah, it's not quite this, again, Hollywood sort of Avengers style ally versus Axis. It's three world superpowers trying to maintain their world superpowerness. And Russia has had a lot of bad things to say about the U.S. and China, working together in the ways that they have. Yeah. But anyways, that's enough about Russia.
I think Russia makes an appearance one more time later in the episode.
Oh, no.
Thought? Maybe not. But
okay.
If I recall, there was a moment, but I don't see it in my notes here. All right, well, let's go. Let's talk about some WACCINE.
WACCINE.
All right, this is from MSNBC. This is the Canadian press. Ontario to strengthen public health enforcement, extend shutdown.
Bro, it's getting gnarly up there in Canada.
It's crazy. And there's a video of a little mashup of these folks, talking about the police presence and how, you basically talking about snitching on your neighbor, and we have a social responsibility and all this kind of stuff. This is mostly
I thought it was
a video.
A pretty interesting video. Are you going to play it?
I don't have like the full thing. This is like well, I don't have the mashup. I have the full thing, which is like 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes here. I can play it. We can go through it here. But again, the story, this is from the Canadian Press.
Effective immediately. We're extending the emergency declaration and prolonging the stay-at-home order province-wide for an additional 2 weeks, for a total of 6 weeks. Outdoor gatherings will now be strictly limited to members of your own household only. Anyone who lives alone can join with one other household.
Okay, if there was a movie where the aliens take over the brains of politicians and they get up on stage and have to like tell people how they're just like prisoners of the world and society, this is exactly how it would look. I mean, he looks like a zombie up there.
Yeah, either that or he looks like he literally has a gun to the back of his head.
Yeah, one or the other.
He's really nervous. He's like not moving his neck very much.
Okay, let me keep going here.
We'll be closing all non-essential construction. We're restricting all outdoor recreational amenities, such as golf courses, basketball courts, soccer fields, and playgrounds. We're reducing capacity in big box retail even further to 25%. Beginning on Monday, places of worship will be capped at a maximum of 10 people indoors. To get ahead of the variants that are plaguing Western Canada, beginning Monday, we're setting up checkpoints at all interprovincial borders. We'll be
inter what?
Interprovincial.
Interprovincial. Oh,
like
Providence.
Interstate.
Okay, yeah.
Limiting access to border crossings between Ontario and the provinces of Manitoba and Quebec, with exceptions such as work, medical care, or transportation of goods. And we're calling on the federal government to immediately tighten up our international borders.
Racist.
We're currently facing the devastating consequences of COVID variants that entered Canada through our borders at the start of this year. We need to do more to stop other, even deadlier variants from getting into Canada and causing more havoc.
This is a critical moment in Ontario's response to this deadly virus, and every single person in Ontario has an important role in protecting our communities. Unfortunately, some people continue to attend gatherings and leave their homes for non-essential reasons. As a government, it is our responsibility to take action to address non-compliance and prevent further transmission.
Oh my God, what a terrifying statement.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
As a government, what did they say? It's our duty to address non-compliance.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's pretty out of control.
This is why Canada needs a second amendment.
Yeah, let me see.
It is our responsibility to take action to address non-compliance and prevent further transmission of COVID-19. That is why, after consulting with public health experts, we have made the deliberate decision to temporarily enhance police officers' authority for the duration of the stay-at-home order.
Oh, great.
Moving forward, police will have the authority to require any individual who is not in a place of residence to, first, provide their purpose for not being at home and provide their home address. Police will also have the authority to stop a vehicle to inquire about an individual's reason for leaving their residence.
That is out of control.
Yeah. I mean, that opens up doors for any police to literally pull over or stop anyone for no reason just to ask them questions. What are you doing here? What are you doing out here? Is this essential? What's your address? Let me put you on a list.
Yeah. Yeah, this is... they say it's only for 2 weeks more or whatever, but...
6 weeks.
Well, they extended it 2 weeks for a total of 6 weeks. Have they already been in the 4 weeks, or is it?
Oh, I don't know.
They're just making it longer starting now.
I don't know, but this is. You know what? I mean, this is just horrible. I'm spooked for our Canadian listeners. We have many Canadian listeners, and our hearts go out to you. You feel free to come hang out here. It's not much better, but at least you can have guns for now. Yeah, this is really terrifying.
Yeah, and there's what can they do really? Other than try to leave.
They're closing international borders, trapping them in. Remember, Canada was the one that forced Canadians who are in the Bahamas. This was a month or two ago. The Canadians were in the Bahamas. The Canadian government forced them to come home, which I don't even see how you could do that, but they did it. And then when they came home from the Bahamas, they put them in Chinese-owned quarantine hotels, against their rights. It's crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. I see a story here. The headline, Ontario yields to major backlash, retracts sweeping pandemic police powers.
Oh, good. I'm
wondering if they, just based on the amount of backlash, basically, they said, okay, all right, we'll back down. Which,
it's interesting. We've seen that happen in Canada a couple of times. That's actually what ended up stopping the practice of putting people in the quarantine hotels.
Right. Yeah.
Something about the Canadian government, they do occasionally respond to complaints, which is not something we're used to in the U.S.
Yeah, that is true. That is weird. They're like, oh, you guys don't like that? Okay, I guess we'll reverse it. Okay,
which is a completely foreign concept in the U.S.
Well, it's a different tactic. They're more like fire and then aim. Yeah. Whereas America's, they're more
fire and keep firing.
Yeah, I guess that's the difference. In America, we don't stop to aim. We just keep shooting.
I'm seeing some Canadians in the chat talking about how much of the police refused.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that would happen here in America, too. I think a lot of officers would be like,
especially with sheriff's departments, which are locally elected officials, who actually, are sort of held accountable to their electors. Similar thing.
I wonder what Sylvia Jones here, the Ontario Solicitor General, how she responds when all the officers are like, nope.
Don't think so.
Arms crossed. How does she respond? It is our responsibility. Does she get mad?
It's a responsibility as the government to. I forget what it was.
We talked about this. How people in positions of authority, especially political authority, are going to have a very hard time stepping down off the little soapbox they've been on for the last year. Yeah. And this might be another example where they'd rather have, and a lot of it could be also that they're being fed this information and they're just not discerning enough to really look at it, because somebody's feeding them this info like, oh, there's a variant, it crossed our borders, we're all gonna die if we don't shut it down further. Somebody's giving them the fear message that they project out into the public. So it's all, it's just, if there's not a discerning mind from the politicians, it's really not good, which is not surprising. Most politicians over the years have been
Which
puppets.
is the hilarious part about it, because when politicians go on these big, control, benders, it's the quote unquote sort of anti-establishment punk rock young people who are, fighting the power, that are like, yeah, listen to your governor and stay home. Do what the police tell you to do. Right. Let me burn a flag. It's just very confusing. I wonder, now there's an interesting connection with Canada and its sort of way that it handles things, because it is technically still part of the Commonwealth.
UK?
Yeah, the UK. I don't know if it's technically in the UK, but it's part of the Commonwealth.
Okay. Yeah, I thought the Queen. Yeah, I thought the Queen still pretty much owns Canada. I thought that was the deal.
Yeah, I think it's more complicated, but yeah, an American perspective, that's sort of what it seems like.
A Californian uninformed geopolitical view of it. The Queen owns Canada, right? I thought the Queen.
Well, I just find that interesting because if we head over here to MSN, we got a headline here. They're mirroring this from Daily Express. MP calls for lockdown lift after data shows quarter of COVID deaths not from virus. This came out about 5 days ago. Yeah. The article reads, figures released by the Office of National Statistics show 23% of coronavirus deaths are registered as people who die with the virus rather than from it. It means those who passed away will have tested positive with coronavirus, but it was not the primary cause of death registered. Now, we've been following this trend. This was a huge part of the math in the U.S., which we've covered for a long time, but
almost lost the channels, the YouTube channels, because of medical misinformation for talking about such issues.
Yeah, this is mainstream news, folks. ONS figures also show daily deaths have slowed since the beginning of April. By date of death daily figures, no more than 28 have been recorded since the start of the month. Wow. The government announced higher daily figures with 60 fatalities announced on April 9th because their updates are based on how many deaths are reported on a given day. Oxford University has calculated that while there are 2,537 coronavirus patients in hospital, around half of them actively have the virus while others are recovered. Again, yeah, they're giving the number 2,500 people in hospital, but only half of those actually currently have the virus. Steve Baker, deputy chairman of the COVID research group of Tory MPs, told The Telegraph he believes the new data means lockdown restrictions should be lifted sooner. He told the outlet, quote, I know the prime minister is worried about case data in other countries, quote, but we were promised the vaccine would break the link between cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. This was an interesting comment because we were promised the vaccine would break the link between cases, hospitalizations, and death. The link between cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, it seems, I don't know. He's specifically referring to how you count and categorize cases and hospitalizations and deaths. So he's kind of like, hey, it's time to follow up with your propaganda. Quote, we've been told repeatedly it has done. So, of course, we're looking to the prime minister to follow the data so that we can end the other harms that come with restrictions and lockdowns. The sooner we're talking about the crisis in cancer care, the sooner we'll be solving it. So he means we want to talk. Let's move on. But Boris Johnson has continued to urge caution and said as lockdown restrictions are lifted, cases will begin to rise. The prime minister said, quote, it is very, very important for everybody to understand that the reduction in these numbers in hospitalizations and in deaths and infections has not been achieved by the vaccination program. Okay, people. Okay, then what's the point of the vaccination program? Quote, people don't, I think, appreciate that it's the lockdown that has been overwhelmingly important in delivering this improvement in the pandemic and in the figures we're seeing. So yes, of course, the vaccination program has helped, but the bulk of the work in reducing the disease has been done by the lockdown.
Government. You mean government? Government
Right.
has been the one that saved the people from this mighty virus?
Exactly. It's, the police coming around and making sure you have your papers and you're not doing any unessential activity. It's when we arrest children and their fathers who are playing in a park. It's when we shut down and destroy the economy and, cause people to fall into drug and alcohol abuse and inevitably some suicidal tendencies. That's what's saving the world. It's me, the government. It comes after the second.
You're ghosting, by the way, on the video. Just to let you know, if you can
let me unghost
refresh
here.
Yeah.
Okay. It comes after the second step of the government's roadmap out of lockdown. What?
Something weird happened to the video. I don't know what's happening. There we go. That's better.
My mega ghosted?
Yeah, it turned into, it was like showing parts of your room. I don't know what was going on. Okay, we're back.
Oh, that is strange.
We just doxed your room.
It just turned the green screen gray. Okay. Well, let's keep going. We're almost done here. Chris Hobson, chief executive of health service organization NHS providers, warned there were good reasons to be cautious despite the reopening. He said, quote, "We need to be really careful about assuming we're on a one-way, inexorable, inevitable track to it being fantastic and we can go back to normal, because actually we'll need a new normal. There it is. It also comes as the UK has offered a vaccine to every adult over 50 years old, now offering those 45 and up jabs. The UK has given a lot of jabs. Yeah. I think it goes into the numbers of how many jabs they've given. Interesting how they come to. There's the interesting thing about this is it's two stories in one. Now, just talking about how the mainstream is reporting this, it's just an interesting way that they propagandize. They start out with the headline, "Hey, a quarter of these deaths are not from the virus, and we should open up because this is ridiculous." And then halfway through, they transition into why that's actually opposite of what we're going to be doing.
It's all good, except be scared. We must be very cautious about how we open up.
It's a bait and switch is what it is. Yeah. So there you go. Sorry, UK. You almost got out, buddy.
Well, yeah. And it's the disappointment of the Trump clone over there. People were really stoked about Boris Johnson when he first came onto the scene with Brexit and everything, but more came out about his father and his eugenics writings and stuff, so it's nothing new.
Well, yeah, remember the 180 switch of Boris Johnson last year during the main part of the pandemic when he was basically Britain's Trump for a long time. And then out of nowhere, just made a 180-degree shift.
Lockdown. We must lock down. Everybody must be imprisoned for this virus.
It was bizarre.
And he didn't he get the virus too?
He did.
And he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to make it if we don't lock down."
Yeah, it was weird. No, then the lizard people came in and said, "You don't feel too good, huh? Well, we'll just keep giving you the virus until you comply."
And he said, Okay.
My tummy hurts.
All right, well,
what's next?
We got a couple stories to go here. This first one is from the New York Times. Of course, keep track of the New York Times because they are the bastion of journalism. Didn't you know this, Basil? The headline, "Least vaccinated U.S. counties have something in common. Trump voters."
Oh, good.
They just can't. They
can't let it go, can they?
About 31% of adults in the U.S. have now been fully vaccinated. Oh, so close to that 33. Scientists have estimated that 70 to 90% of the total population must acquire resistance to the virus to reach herd immunity. But in hundreds of counties around the country, vaccination rates are low, with some even languishing in the teens.
Oh my gosh.
Piddly teens.
Oh, by the way,
yes.
I did get the numbers. We were talking last episode on the numbers of the vaccinated people who catch COVID and go to the hospital.
Right.
Being 7%. So that's if you have the vaccine, you still catch COVID, you go to the hospital, 7%. Now, one of the things that we keep getting told over and over about the vaccine is that even if you do get COVID, you'll be less likely to go to the hospital. It reduces the severity of this sickness if you get it. So get the vaccine no matter what. Well, turns out the hospitalization rate for COVID of non-vaccinated is somewhere between 1% and 5%. So I did just want to confirm that
there's more chance.
There's if you catch COVID with the vaccine, it's actually opposite of what they're saying. You're actually more likely to be hospitalized if you catch COVID with the vaccine.
But Basil, we're talking about such a small percentage of people, the people that get vaccinated.
Who cares if they
COVID,
die? Yeah, we're a community. That's, kind of like communism.
Community. Yeah, I was thinking about that just as a side note. Church that I used to go to, they talked about community a lot, and I used to kind of think about, like, are they pushing communism? Like, not really, but kind of the way they talk about things.
Yeah.
But anyway.
They bring up the early church and the sharing things.
I would much more like to see distributism over communism. Yeah.
Decentralization.
Distributism. Right. Actually, distributism was an actual concept that was shared by G.K. Chesterton about a century ago.
I did not know that. Don't know much about it.
It's very interesting. We'll cover it.
Okay, that'll be your rant for next episode.
The disparity in vaccination rates has so far mainly broken down along political lines. Oh, no kidding. The New York Times examined survey and vaccine administration data for nearly every U.S. county and found that both willingness to receive the vaccine and actual vaccination rates to date were lower on average in counties where a majority of residents voted to re-elect former President Donald Trump in 2020. At least they called him president. I'll give him that. The phenomenon has left some places with a shortage of supply and others with a glut. And there's a chart here that shows the different counties and the more Trump you are, the less likely you are to get a vaccine. Mm-hmm. For months, health officials across the U.S. have been racing to inoculate people as variants of the coronavirus have continued to gain a foothold, carrying mutations that can make infections more contagious and, in some cases, deadlier. Vaccinations have sped up, and in many places, people are still unable to book appointments because of high demand. In Michigan, where cases have spiraled out of control, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, recently urged President Biden to send additional doses. But in a more rural and more Republican areas, health officials said that supply is far exceeding demand. In a county in Wyoming, a local health official asked the state to stop sending first doses of the vaccine because the freezer was already stuffed to capacity with unwanted vials. In an Iowa county, a clinic called people who had volunteered to give shots to tell them not to come in because so few residents had signed up for the appointments. In a county in Pennsylvania, a hospital set up a drive-through in the park, stocked with roughly 1,000 vaccine doses. Only about 300 people showed up. And in interviews with more than 24 states and county health officials, including some who said they were feeling weary after a year of hearing lifelong friends, family, and neighbors tell them that the virus was a hoax or not particularly serious, most attributed low vaccination rates to at least partly to hesitant conservative populations. Quote, "I just never in a million years ever expected my field of work to become less medical and more political," said Haley Bloom, a registered Republican and the public information officer for the health department that covers Natrona County, Wyoming, which Mr. Trump won by a wide margin last year. The health department, Ms. Bloom said, set up a clinic in a former Macy's at a local mall and was prepared to give 1,500 shots a day, 4 days a week, but it has never been able to fill all the slots. She said usually 300 to 400 people show up. Ms. Bloom, like many other county officials, said she feared that reaching herd immunity might not be possible in her community. "It's terrifying to think that this may never end," she said. "So much hinges on these vaccinations."
You can get herd immunity without a vaccination, lady.
Well, not in her world. About 27% of Natrona County's adult residents have been fully vaccinated, and the federal government has estimated, based on census survey data, that about 32% of its residents may be hesitant to get a shot. What happened to the rest of the 50% there? They just don't care about them. They're not. Anyway, it goes on. We don't have to read it. This is a pretty long article. It goes into
it makes sense. It makes sense that the red counties would be getting less vaccines. I'm not sure if
Again, it's interesting though, because Trump was so about it. He was one of his big talking points was like, "I got the vaccine out before anybody else. We got it done in 6 months."
Well, that is an interesting thing that's not making it into these articles, isn't it? I mean, Trump was pro-vaccine. He had Operation Warp Speed. He even recently told everybody to go get your vaccine. And so they're trying to make it a Trump thing. Again, trying to just keep Orange Man in the bad column in one way or another. But I mean, he was a pro-vaccine guy. And so, yeah, just because people don't want the vaccine, it doesn't mean it's because of Trump, but it goes against the whole ethos that Trump was this mind control genius and, had puppet-like control over his constituents, which is just not true. Yeah. I mean, evidently. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you could be a politician in the United States in the 2020s here without being pro-vaccine. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is she the only one that's, has she said anything about the vaccines? Oh, yeah. Has she? I guess I don't know. I am assuming so. It seems as if that's a thing that I've heard. But there is another QAnon candidate coming in, by the way. I know so Marjorie Taylor Greene rebukes vaccine passports. I remember that. And she recently, her whole campaign thing was quote unquote canceled. But I mean, her caucus. Yeah, I don't think you can really be a politician these days because so much of the money that politicians receive is from big pharma. There's just no way to be a true politician without peddling. Yeah, well, stuff. It's kind of like the gun control thing too. And Biden, you've got so much money from the gun lobbyists that for Biden to go out and ban guns would be politically suicide for his campaign and those connected to him. People bringing up Ron DeSantis, and again, I think DeSantis is another one of those guys that people are celebrating because he was opposed to the vaccine passports. But I think he was pro-vaccine. He definitely wasn't anti-vaccine. No, I don't think he was. Anti-vaccine passports. Yeah. He's talking about, how the passports are unconstitutional. But I don't think, I don't think he would come out and be a straight up anti-vaxxer. It's more of a my body, my choice thing. Yeah, it looks like Florida Politics, lengthy statement Wednesday. This is a couple weeks ago about vaccines. Let me try to find it here. Well, it looks like it looks like he was all about the rollout of the vaccine. So again, I mean, of course. Yep. I do want to say this next thing on our list here that looks like it should go down into the gun control section. Oh, you know what? It was supposed to be originally when I was putting together today's show. It was supposed to flow into the gun control stuff. We can move it. Yeah, that's fine. Why don't you move that down? I'll do my little combo here. Okay. And then we'll get into the break. All right. Okay. So I said it's all you, bro. It's all me, bro. Well, as we've been following for quite a while now, of course, very concerned about pregnant women and the effects of the vaccine, the experimental phase of the vaccine on pregnant women. We covered the story last week about the women's health issue when it comes to vaccines. Very concerning, but over here on CNN.com, there's a headline: Brazil asks women, if possible, to delay pregnancy over COVID variants. Brazil has warned women to postpone pregnancy until the worst of the coronavirus pandemic has passed, saying that the variants of the coronavirus in Brazil have been more aggressive in pregnant women. Quote, if possible, the women should postpone the pregnancy a bit to a better time so that they can have more peaceful pregnancy, Secretary of Primary Health Care of the Brazilian Health Ministry, Rafael Camara, said on Friday. Quote, we cannot say this to those who are for 42, 43 years old, of course, but for young women who can, the best thing is to wait for a little, he said during a press conference.
A little. Just wait a little bit.
Just wait a little. Brazil is secondary only to the U.S. in terms of COVID-19 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University. And then it goes into a whole bunch of filler info. So there you go. There's the basics of it, is the Brazilian government is telling young women not to get pregnant during the pandemic. Don't do it. I don't know why that would be a big deal if they can just get the vaccine. If it's safe for pregnant women, just get the vaccine, protect them. No. Just don't even bother getting pregnant. Now you pair this with this other article from Bloomberg.com and the headline, "We must start planning for a permanent pandemic." Dun, dun, dun. For the past year, an assumption, sometimes explicit, often tacit, has informed almost all of our thinking about the pandemic. At some point, it will be over, and then we'll go back to normal. This premise is almost certainly wrong. SARS-CoV-2 protean and elusive as it is, may become our permanent enemy, like the flu, but worse. And even if it peters out eventually, our lives and routines will by then have changed irreversibly. Going back won't be an option. The only way is forward. But to what exactly? Most epidemics appear once populations achieve herd immunity, and the pathogen has too few vulnerable bodies available as hosts for its self-propagation. This herd protection comes about through the combination of natural immunity in people who have recovered from the infection and vaccination of the remaining population. You've got your nice new definition of herd immunity there, where it can't be reached without scientific intervention. Goes against thousands of years of humans surviving pandemics.
Don't tell them about that.
Sorry, I forgot. In the case of SARS-CoV-2, however, recent developments suggest that we may never achieve herd immunity.
Oh, no. Save us, aliens.
Even the U.S., which leads most other countries in vaccinations and already had large outbreaks, won't get there. That's the upshot of an analysis by Christopher Murray at the University of Washington and Peter Piot at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Hygiene.
Pee-pee hygiene.
The main...
Sorry.
What?
Nothing. Go on.
The main reason is the ongoing emergence of new variants that behave almost like new viruses. A clinical vaccine trial in South Africa showed that people in the placebo group who had previously been infected with one strain had no immunity against its mutated descendant and became reinfected. There are similar reports from parts of Brazil that had massive outbreaks and subsequently suffered renewed epidemics. That leaves only vaccination as a path toward lasting herd immunity, except for those who got the vaccine are also not vaccinated against the variants. But okay, whatever you say, Bloomberg. And admittedly, some of the shots available today are still somewhat effective against some of the new variants, but over time they will become powerless against coming mutations. Of course, it will become powerless. Of course, vaccine makers are already feverishly working on making new jabs, in particular, inoculations based on the revolutionary mRNA technology I've previously described. Can be updated faster than any vaccine in history.
I like how you just slowly turn more evil as you read this.
Yeah,
it's almost like taking over your countenance as evil eugenicist.
Yeah. Well, hey, I just read it off the page, man. I'm a newsreader. If the article is evil, you got to read it in an evil voice. But the serum still needs to be made, shipped and distributed, and jabbed.
When you talk about that right there, I had the picture of the syringe, and you know how they have the little squirt coming out the end?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I meant to comment on that.
Yeah.
The picture at the top is just the most evil looking guy wearing a black mask.
Oh, it might be a lady.
Squirting a vaccine up into the air.
Yeah, it's quite disturbing.
Also, that's obviously not a vaccine syringe, because it's like, you know, the vaccine syringes are tiny. You only get like a few, milliliters of the thing.
It's a Getty
This
image.
is like a gigantic syringe.
It's just a Getty image. Somebody has a licensed thing with Getty images, and they just found one with a squirty vaccine or a squirty syringe there. But yeah, I think
vaccine.
This article is a month old, and the pregnant one I think was much more recent.
Oh yeah,
but
no,
point
is you pair them together. This pandemic, according to Bloomberg here and others, of course, the pandemic will never be over. It's a forever pandemic, permanent pandemic. So all these young women in Brazil, I probably wouldn't wait around for the government to tell you it's okay to have a baby again.
That's not well, number one, that's not. I mean, yes, we humans can make the choices, but it's not entirely up to the people to decide, and especially not told by the government.
Well, and you pair this with, I believe it's in Brazil, the big movement toward abortion rights in Brazil.
Oh, right. There was a big parade in the streets when they were all the women were, celebrating. It's like, yay, we can kill babies now.
Well,
they're all cheering.
Hold on, because yes, in Brazil, they just made abortions legal. And recently, one of the heads of this movement, one of the leaders of the pro-abortion movement, died in an abortion procedure.
Oh, seriously?
Brutal.
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, she was like the head of the pro-abortion movement, and then they made abortions legal, and she passed away in an abortion procedure. Brutal. And so, yes. Now, of course, those who are very passionate about the vaccine hesitancy, or sometimes they will proudly claim themselves anti-vaxxers. One of the big reason that they are skeptical of the technology is the depopulation agenda, quote unquote. And so, yeah, if you're talking about a depopulation agenda, first of all, these vaccines have shown to have extremely strange effects on the female reproductive system. We've covered that mainstream story last episode, where it's causing postmenopausal women to start menstruating again. Trans people who are on hormone or gender affirming hormones who have not menstruated in years are starting to menstruate again. Add that with all the VAERS claims, the vaccine, what is it called? Damage settlement.
The reporting
thing. Yes, the reporting system. VAERS is reporting lots of miscarriages. And now you have the Brazilian government just straight up telling women not to have babies during the pandemic. Meanwhile, they're having the abortion revolution, and the pandemic, theoretically, if you believe the mainstream, is never going to be over. So there's some very strange things happening that the depopulation awareness folk are very aware of.
We should invite fewer people to be born.
Yeah.
Straight out of the playbook.
There you go. Yeah. And of course, depopulation has been a big movement among the elites for a long time. Yes, like for instance, Margaret Sanger, the mother of Planned Parenthood, so specifically, not wanting black people to procreate, and of course you got the Georgia Guidestones, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just saying, hey, I'm not propagating these ideas. I'm just reporting on ideas that are out there and taking it from the mainstream. So, anyways, I think we should take a little break. Okay, folks, we're just going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere, because after the break, we've got, a great piece on CRISPR. We've been uncovering some of the downstream genetic effects of CRISPR that are now being taken seriously by gene editing scientists. Of course, we've got our POLYTICK section, going to be talking about Maxine Waters inciting an insurrection and, DeSantis and all the good stuff. You're going to want to pay attention to that. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to follow up with some of the shootings going on and some of the things that are being kind of kept quiet about the gun control issue and the mass shootings going on recently. So stick around after the break. You don't want to miss it. But first, we're going to thank some of our producers. Yeah. For some reason, I thought we had a jingle to go there. Do we not?
No,
I don't think we do.
Not exactly. We should, but
yeah, seems like something we should have. But anyways, but those of you out there who might be new to the show, just want to catch you up with something going on. You might have noticed that there's no advertisements on the show, at least none that we benefit from. There's no affiliate codes. There's no, we're not selling any supplements, some vitamin fusion supplements. I'm not trying to do any of that. In fact, we are strictly on the value for value model, because we believe that every corporate sponsorship is a form of censorship. That's right. And as you heard from Susan Wojcicki herself, the winner of the Freedom Alliance Freedom Speech Award, that advertising
sponsored by YouTube.
Sponsored by YouTube that's the thing. Advertising is the thing. Advertising is the main way that the big tech companies are funding themselves. 99% of the revenue from Facebook and Google and YouTube, it's all coming from advertising. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm just gonna say it. Advertising is evil. It's straight up evil, because it was invented by but including the fact that advertising was created by the nephew of Sigmund Freud. His name's Edward Bernays. He was brought over from Europe by the CIA to do some PR work. He invented the concept of PR in advertising for the CIA and then was let loose on the private sector. And that's where we got advertising. That's where we got PR. And but enough about him. There's also connections with the Hegelian dialectic, creating a problem in order to sell you the solution. And of course, brainwashing, mind control. It's all wrapped up. And you might think it sounds kind of crazy, but you just take it from me. Go research it yourself. It's going to offend you when you realize what's really going on with the advertising industry. And it's sad, because advertising has become a main way that a lot of people, especially creators of content on the internet, are able to support themselves and continue creating what they create. But not us. We are on the value for value model, which is a simple system where we create the value, we put it out 3 times a week, we try the very best we can. And if you get any value out of what we do here, you have the opportunity. Some might call it a responsibility, but whatever it is to you, you can become a producer of the show by supporting it in many ways. One of those ways is to support the show financially. And, it's one of those things. It's part of a rebellion against the global theology of advertisements. When we first started with the value for value model, we got people telling us all the time, it's okay, just do ads. I'd rather do ads than, have to think about taking responsibility for my own media future. Just brainwash me. Just let the industry brainwash me so I can get everything for free. And look, we understand. We are brought up in the same world as you, but no, we are taking an active role in defiance of the spiritual stronghold of advertising. And if you want to participate in that, you can become a producer of the show. And I do mean producer. That's not a cute title. It's not a cute nothing. Just like the real world, if you pay to have a piece of media produced, you are a producer. And we like to thank those producers on the show. And let's do that right now. The first way people can become a producer of the show is by heading over to patreon.com/CCNT for Canary Cry News Talk. That's patreon.com/CCNT. And Gons, this week we did have a couple people come in on the Patreon.
All right.
So I want to thank a new producer, and their name is Joe H.
Thank you, Joe H.
Thank you very much, Joe H, for coming in. And we also have a upgrading producer, which we always appreciate. It's hard enough to get new people to produce the show, even harder to get them to upgrade their producership. So we want to give a big round of applause to upgrading producer Brandon J.
Thank you, Brandon J.
Thank you very much, Brandon J. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody likes Patreon. That's okay. We've had our bumps in the road with Patreon. But if you don't like Patreon, that's fine. We support you. That's why we have canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right. canarycryradio.com/support is a great place to help produce the show. You can come and read about the value for value model, read about the Canary Cry Roundtable of Knights and Dames. You can come in as a recurring producer of the show on a monthly basis, and we thank all of our recurring producers for helping lay down a foundation to keep the show going. Or if commitment's not your thing, you can go ahead and make a one-time producership in any amount. Oh, the freedom you can feel with a one-time producership. There's also cryptocurrency and all sorts of fun ways. So, Gons, who do we have coming in on the PayPal?
On the PayPal, sorry, I was distracted the whole time you're talking because I was looking up David Ogilvy. You know who David Ogilvy is?
The name rings a bell.
He is the official father of advertising, British advertising tycoon. And he was born
when was he around?
1911, died in 1999.
Well, I'll have to add him to the spiel.
Yeah, he's I found actually a website that talks about there's like a conference where he's celebrated as the father of advertising, and it's like a whole deal where if you're in the healthcare industry, you know, the way they talk about it, they're like, if you're in health advertising, health and wellness, you have to understand David Ogilvy. His method. Yeah. So
that's interesting. Yeah, you know, I will say when it comes to Edward Bernays, he's more like the father of PR.
Yeah, PR and modern propaganda. Yeah.
Tightly related to advertising. I'll have to add David to the spiel. But yeah, Edward Bernays came in and worked for the government and basically reframed stories coming out from the government so he could get public approval, and then went into the private sector and invented the PR system,
right,
or the industry. So okay, very interesting. Who's coming in on the
PayPal? First off, thank you for all the recurring supporters. We appreciate that. First up, Shield Labs.
Thank you very much, producer Shield Labs.
And there's more from Shield Labs in the art department, so stay tuned for that. Thank you, Shield Labs. Next up, we have James H.
Thank you very much, James H, coming in with a pocket full of sevens.
That's right. Next up, Tristan H.
Thank you very much, Tristan H, coming in with $3.26. And this brought something up. Have we talked about doing a show number club yet?
No, but we should.
I was wondering if there's some sort of infrastructure that we could set up where people sign up to produce individual shows with the episode number. So, you know, like $3.26 for this one, but then it would like automatically go to $3.27 for the next show.
Sounds like something that you're going to have to talk to a developer to code.
Sounds complicated, but
it does sound
cool
complicated. It is cool. Yeah, it is a good idea. In the meantime, it'll have to be manually done, as Tristan H has done the last few episodes, so appreciate that.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Kimberly W.
Thank you very much. Kimberly W. coming in with $3.30. 33 Illuminati handler producership here.
And she says, love you guys. Oh, love you
Love
too,
you too,
producer
Kimberly.
Next up, producer Stefan S.
Coming in with $11.22. That's, I don't know exactly what that is, but it seemed important.
Okay. The day Kennedy was shot, November
Was it really?
22nd. Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
I don't know if that's why he gave us the 1122, but that's one thing.
But
and his note, pronounced Steph N. So
hey, thank you. Any producer named Stefan or Steven, send your pronunciation. Because we want to get it right, you know? It's nothing worth. It's kind of like if I produced a show and they're like, "Oh, we've got producer Basil."
People call you Basil all the time.
I know,
We
and
have
they
guests
know
on.
that
Well,
they're doing it wrong.
Basil.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I think that's all of our PayPal producers. Maybe I'll do one little refresh. Good thing I did, because producer Sigra the Beast came in. Yeah, thank you very much. Producer Sigra the Beast just rounding third and sliding into home. We appreciate it.
Okay, Sigra the Beast.
Give him the gong.
I know, I'm getting there. All right. The other ways you can support the show, you can do it with crypto. You can go to canarycryradio.com/crypto, and you can learn about that. You can also help produce the show with your time and talent. We have Jade Bouncerson and Christine, the team there for the timestamps, and we appreciate that. I think we're going to simplify some of the timestamping going on, so hopefully that's happening here.
Okay.
And also, you can send us your jingles and ISOs. We requested a Chris Shilzilla jingle. Chris Shilzilla, the CNN, I don't know if he's a columnist or what he is, but Basil's been following the Shilzilla for some time. It's his beat, making sure that Shilzilla doesn't say anything too outrageous.
Keep an eye on this guy.
And we have an official jingle produced by B-Dubs. So here it is.
Woo.
It's a little quiet.
That was kind of low. I couldn't quite hear it.
I can't make it any louder than that right now. I have to boost it in post-production to make it a little bit louder. But yeah, it was it's like a Go-Go Power Ranger type thing. Is that what that was?
Okay, good.
Except it was Shilzilla.
Loving it. I'm checking on Shilzilla right now to see.
Yeah, I actually checked on him last night too. There was a couple interesting stories that, if it was actually, and I wasn't sure if it was actually written by Shilzilla, but if it was starting to peddle some of the more objective approaches to the origin about, the Wuhan lab and all that kind of stuff. It was very interesting, but I didn't know if it was actually him that wrote it.
Well, I do want to give credit where credit's due. I'm looking at Chris Siliza, the Shilzilla monster, is on his Twitter account 5 hours ago. He posted an analysis of Maxine Waters' comments, which we'll get into later in this show. And he tweets, "Republicans are wrong for aiding and abetting Trump, period. Waters is wrong for encouraging confrontation and violence in a situation that requires the exact opposite of our leaders, period." So very interesting. That was a very, very level-headed and I'm not going to call it smart. It's just the right thing to say about what Maxine Waters did and said. But of course, because he's a CNN guy, he had to start with Republicans are wrong for aiding and abetting Trump. You can't just come out and say Waters shouldn't. On one hand, I get it. He's coming out against whataboutism, and he knows his audience is the thing. He knows he has to say something bad about Trump.
It's the orange caveat.
Yeah. He's got to be the orange tag at the beginning.
All right. So the other way you can produce the shows with your artwork.
One art, please.
Woo!
And speaking of BLM, we have a few pieces here to share with you. This first piece, hold on, I gotta get I gotta move these in. Sorry, I had a situation here with my tabs, but I am getting it done. Oh, here we go. This first piece is from producer Kaylin's mom.
All right.
She wanted to send this drawing of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. She also asked to tell us about the BLM flag standing over the broken cross, showing the state's priorities.
Yeah. Well, this is great. This is, producer Kaylin's mom. I think, was it Kaylin who does these pieces of art for us? I think so. Or I believe.
Because the name that came in the email was not Kaylin. It was something else.
Right. What I'm saying is Kaylin's mom is sending it on behalf of Kaylin.
Oh, I see.
I'm pretty sure this is a piece of art created by a very talented younger person.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Of which I don't think we have the name. Maybe we do. I forget. But it's a great piece. For those who are just listening, up in the sky there, we've got the Earth wearing a mask with some very sad eyes. Hovering or looming over the Earth is a devil-like figure with a Chinese flag for a head, which is flaming, and this figure is holding the puppet strings of hairy legs Joe Biden on one hand and Kamala Harris on the other hand.
Virus, syringes, and money raining down from the sky.
Yes. I just want to mention the hairy legs Joe Biden puppet is wearing shorts, does have very hairy legs, and a crown floating above his head there. Yeah. And between them, yes, is a BLM flag hovering over a broken cross. So thank you very much, producer Kaylin's mom, for sending that in, and we extend our thanks to the artists of this piece.
Very good. Thank you so much. This next piece is from Shield Labs and Smiley Pants 707 from Canary Community. Yes. It's a very cool piece. It's I don't know, you got to describe it a little bit, but the note here says this was a collaborative work with Smiley Pants 707 on Canary Cry Community or .community. By Shield Labs here. They had this concept that needed turned into an art. Their vision, a coal miner AI with a canary in a vaporwave techno world. Ooh. With the Tower of Babel in the distance. Behold! So there you go. Concept by done. Smiley Pants 707. Artwork excellent materialized by Shield Labs.
Mm-hmm. And we have, just what was said there. On the right, we've got a sort of techno cyborg coal miner holding a canary in his hand in some sort of ethereal cube cage in this beautiful vector wave 80s style glowing pink landscape with the Tower of Babel in the background.
Vaporwave, not vector.
What did I say?
You said vector wave, but it's okay.
I think they both count.
Yeah.
I think I said vector because of the lines, you know?
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you very much both to the conceptual artist Smiley Pants 707 and the artist Shield Labs.
Very good. Thank you for that. And it kind of goes with a lot of the themes that we've been putting together here. Next up, we have producer Allie coming in. The note here, looky over here, folks, an assortment of prizes of questionable value awaits. All you have to do is subject yourselves to either an experimental gene therapy treatment or a chance to get your very own rare blood clot lottery shot. Now, don't you worry, feeble-minded fearmongers. Nobody has died of these shots yet, that we will admit. Step right up and don't be shy. It'll be quick. No time to cry. Get your jab and you can grab. Close your eyes and pick your prize. And
that was good. There's a collar. There being what is it called?
Like a circus?
Not a circus collar. Like a, what is the other word for circus? Why can I not remember it?
Clown World?
Fair. A fair collar.
A fair collar. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Or a festival.
Yes, and we've got our prizes here for playing the fair game. We've got the teddy bear. Looks very sad teddy bear. But you've got your Jab Light, can of Jab Light there, referring to Budweiser giving away beer, or Anheuser-Busch rather, giving away beer for a jab. And on the right, you've got your donut. Don't forget your Jab donut.
The shiny glazed donut, no sprinkles apparently.
That's what Carnival Barker. Thank you,
Carnival
Dento
Barker. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, Carnival Barker.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, producer Allie. That's Gaslin Bonds in the chat, everybody.
And I like the poem. I like the little rhyme.
Yes,
because it's for some reason, it's interesting how these things happen. Because our next producer also came up with a rhyme, and that was producer Joe. And he has a note here. Hello, Basil and Gons. I've been tuning in for many years and have always appreciated your perspectives and commentary. I believe your work is more important now than it's ever been, and am so thankful to have access to content like this. I can't imagine a day where Canary Cry is no more, and feel the call to support the show so you can stay on the air for years to come. In that spirit, I wrote you a poem and dusted off the old Photoshop to create my own rendition of Gonzo with his best buddy Basil, the googly-eyed Canary. It's a picture of the Muppet Gonzo with glasses and a hat with an open cage, think outside the cage, holding a Muppet bird?
A big Muppet canary with googly eyes.
I like how I'm just holding you by the hips. It just brings visions of joy.
It's like our couples picture we're going to take.
I know. Don't let the wife see this one.
The limerick here reads, Rosewater's red, Gonzo is blue. Think outside the cage and expand your worldview. Very good. Great job.
I actually did share this one with the wife, and she responded, I like your new model, the support model. It's just coming around, folks.
Oh, we're doing it, folks. Thanks to the producers.
Yeah.
For they're the only ones who are able to convince your wife that this is a good idea.
Yeah. So I think that's all the artwork we got today, and I think that does it. Oh, we do have, we should mention the meetup real quick. Let me find that piece from Ciara with the meetup list there. There's one coming up, I think it's this weekend, isn't it? The Pacific Northwest.
24th, I believe.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest happening on the 24th of April.
Saturday.
You got May 22nd in Florida, SoCal June 26th, Arizona July 24th, and Missouri September 11th. And that's you can email Ciara at CiaraLauren93. That's CiaraLauren93 for more information. And I think was there a Zoom meetup this past weekend?
Oh yeah, there was. I wasn't able to make it.
Yeah.
We'd have to check canarycry.community, which is our off Facebook algorithm-less social media just for Canarians. I'm sure they took some pictures and put them on the thread there.
From the Zoom call? Like screenshots?
Yeah, they do sometimes, yeah.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
Yeah, the one of them that I made it to, I was welcomed to the Zoom call by a grid of like 15 people, all with big googly eyes on. It was great.
You're not alone. It's spreading like a virus.
I know. I'm thinking about starting the Googly Eyes Club. Now, this is just more Basil random talk. Don't expect this anytime soon. But if we put together a little producer package where they produce at a certain level, we could send them a little bag of googly eyes to stick all over their town.
Okay, but it better have the Canary Cry News Talk logo or something in the eyeball or something. In the iris.
Pupil, yeah.
In the pupil, yeah. Okay, I think that does it. Is there anything else to mention here for the break?
I do not think so, no.
All right, let's wake up.
Yes, it's wake up time.
Hey, y'all, wake up.
And
wake up, y'all.
Y'all, let's talk about CRISPR.
CRISPR. Cas9.
And this is BigThink.com, known for their blazing white backgrounds and all their videos. And the headline here is CRISPR, can we control it? The potential of CRISPR technology is incredible, but the threats are too serious to ignore. And I'm going to play the first few seconds here because there's a mashup of all the different people that talk here. It includes Richard Dawkins, your number one atheist in the world, looking kind of old. You know, I remember him from all the debates with the Christian apologists, but he's getting a little up there. But it's interesting how they bring him into the conversation about CRISPR. And then I have a couple different segments from this 14-minute video that I wanted to highlight. But here's the intro to this Big Think article, CRISPR, can we control it?
Our ability to manipulate genes can be very powerful. It has been very powerful.
This is going to revolutionize human life.
Would the consequences be bad? And they might be.
Every time you monkey with the genome, you are taking a chance that something will go wrong.
The technique could be misused in horrible ways.
When I started this research project, kind of had this initial feeling of what have I done, and
Yay, Big Think.
What have I done?
It's so weird because it's got that happy music, the jingly happy music, but everything they said there was pretty kind of, troubling. It could go horribly wrong.
Every time I complete an experiment, I think, what have I done? That's horrifying. I did like the cute little, monkey with the genome.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the first guy here. I forget his name. It'll pop up on the screen and then I'll mention it. And this is him talking about the sentiment that most of us have about CRISPR and how it's playing into or tapping into eugenics. Well, this person happens to disagree.
People think that introducing traits into offspring is a form of eugenics and is on a slippery slide to Nazism. I happen to think that that is a bogus ethical argument, but it is by far the majority ethical argument. And in many countries, genetic enhancement is or will be illegal. And it's going to take a huge force to overcome that. Just as cloning is illegal in virtually every country. And when Dolly the sheep was cloned in 1997, there were confident predictions that there's nothing you could do to stop human cloning. It was just around the corner. And here we are, almost 20 years later, and it has not happened. Also, the task of engineering high intelligence is turning out to be a lot harder than one might have thought.
There you go. So he's Pinker. What was his name? Sorry, I missed it. Steven Pinker. Yep, Steven Pinker. He's a psychologist, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Author of Enlightenment Now. And his argument is that enhancement genetics is not eugenics. And that
that's not his argument. That's his point. He makes literally no argument.
Oh, okay, yes. He's refuting the idea that people think. Well, he's not even refuting. He's just saying that he disagrees with.
He says,
the people.
"I think that's bogus," and gives no counterpoint.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, why? And why do we care if you think it's bogus if you're not giving us any? Anything to think about. This is Big Think. Give me something to big think about.
Yeah. Well, and the other part, he goes on to talk about how the intelligence gene and how we've been able to identify different genes like the musician's gene and the artist's gene, but it's hard to exactly or to know that if we enhance it, it's not just one gene that you got to throw in. You got to throw in like thousands of genes, and then we don't know if that's going to cause you to be, or the person to be bipolar or create cancer or all this kind of stuff. And it's like,
what's the date on this video?
I don't see a date on here. I thought it was pretty recent though, because I did get it from my Google, notes. Yeah, April 20th or April 19th. I guess it's not 20th because it's tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's new, brand new. So this was basically made in response to the scientists coming out and saying CRISPR is very flawed. We need to stop this.
It's possible. Well, it's probably already in the works if it's a Big Think video.
Could have been. Who knows? I mean, they're not a huge production. There's not a lot of production that goes into these.
Well, April 18th. So yeah, okay, yeah, maybe it was in response, but there's been a lot more conversation. It's been a lot more conversation about CRISPR in general. So, so I had a point that I got. You derailed my point. I forgot what it was. It's okay, no big deal. Here's a second guy. The point about not being able to enhance these other things with genes, or just the risks of not knowing what kind of effects that might have. Everything that he mentioned, he kept mentioning IQ. He kept mentioning like, well, you can just add, just a fraction of an IQ point, but that might give you cancer. And I'm thinking, why is the IQ always the measurement for intelligence? Because it's such a limited way to measure human intelligence, So I don't know. It's always interesting to me that they're very biased about, what is intelligence? There's different kinds of intelligence.
Well,
there's emotional
the big thing
intelligence
is that IQ is the most easily quantifiable and therefore monetizable in our current system.
Right.
So, it's a measurement. The IQ is really more of a measurement of the type of intellectualism or intellect that can be utilized and monetized by the corporations hiring the scientists or the academic institutions that monetize their members.
Which is totally makes sense.
So that's why they care about IQ.
Yeah, I guess. But because, let's say you throw one of these guys with really high IQs and pair them with somebody who has an extensive knowledge of just the wild or something, and then you drop him into sub-Saharan Africa. Well, your IQ means nothing. You know what I mean? Like the person with the knowledge of how the world works is going to better serve you than the guy who scored high on an IQ test. As an example.
Or just in a different way, a little bit more maybe relatable to the modern world would be artist.
Yeah.
Artists don't necessarily have high IQs all the time. Some of them do. But without artists, if it was all engineers with high IQs, the world would be a very depressing place.
It would be a technocratic dreamscape.
That's a good point.
Okay, so this is the second clip here, talking about eugenics and connecting it to Nazi Germany.
The road to eugenics was paved with the best intentions, and it was a series of, you can almost see the world tipping towards horror, step by step by step. It seemed like one iterative step didn't seem that much. And yet, as you accumulated all of these, very soon you went from, in Nazi Germany in particular, starting with trying to eliminate or sterilize those who were somehow physically different from others, all the way including folks who were deaf, folks who had various neurological diseases, and then sort of marched inexorably towards other forms of identity, including, obviously, Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, and so forth. It's worthwhile remembering that progression that occurred in the 1930s was perceived by citizens at that time as part of a progression. So it's incredibly important to remember that history when we step, as we are going to, as we're stepping towards genetic modification of human embryos, or even to some extent the genetic modification of other animals or plants. We have to remember that it seems as if there's a progression, but all of a sudden, by the time from the beginning till the end, you may land up in a very different place.
There you go. So he's admittedly, it's weird because he's warning about it, number one, but also saying like, yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen when we step into genetic engineering, which we will. It reminds me of the Bush Sr. When we'll have a new world order, and we will. Remember that?
Yeah.
But very interesting. I'm glad that they're aware that there is this comparison to eugenics and the concerns about CRISPR and where that's taking us. I mean, it's literally eugenics 2.0. But I don't necessarily get any comfort from guys like this who are like, yeah, and see, they all thought it was a good thing, and then they ended up in genocide. So we may start with good intentions, but you never know. We may end up in genocide again. It's like,
what are you going to do?
What are you
never
gonna
know
do?
until
It's
you
just
try.
natural. Hey, we're just humans.
Right. Yeah.
So that's your big think. Yeah, think big, Basil. Eugenics. Make it happen.
Yeah. Well, good thing they got all those high IQ individuals to get together and figure it out for us.
All right. Well, there's your CRISPR update. In connection to the story before the break about the pregnant women and the permanent pandemic and all this kind of stuff. It really does open it right up to CRISPR and how CRISPR might be able to help people. It's not a vaccine issue anymore. The population doesn't want to get vaccinated every year. We just need to CRISPR-Cas9 the genetics and fix it. So we're completely immune to any kind of virus right from the get-go. So, and we saw that. That was part of what we mentioned very early on in the lockdown and the pandemic and all that. So, but moving on, is there anything else you want to say about the CRISPR there?
No, I think we covered it.
It's Latin for many. Tick. They'll suck your blood. They'll suck
Politics.
your blood.
We have the clip here of Maxine Waters. I clipped it down to the last few seconds. It's about 14 seconds of her talking about what to do. Do you want me to play it? You got some setup that you want?
No, play it. I got some stuff afterwards, so.
What happens? What should protesters do?
It's a little quiet.
It's as loud as I can get it. Oh, let me play it again. It's as loud as I can get it there. Sorry.
I can't hear anything. Sorry.
It's only coming out of one ear, too. It's only coming out of the right side, so that could be why.
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active.
Got to stay on the street. You got to get more active.
We've got to get more confrontational.
We got to get more confrontational.
We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
They got to make sure that they know we mean business.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and this was, I believe this was in Minneapolis. She was coming out and saying that. And of course, it was in response to the Chauvin trial, which actually closing statements are today. They're actually happening during the show. I think they're still going. But another thing she said was that, to paraphrase, they demand a guilty verdict. And if it's not a guilty verdict, shoot, what did she say? Something very threatening. But this is nothing new for Maxine Waters. She was also the one that came out last election cycle. Or was this? Yeah, I don't have it. Yeah, I think this was during the Trump Hillary election cycle, where Maxine Waters came out and basically called for assaults on Republican colleagues in restaurants, at gas stations. Every time you see them, let them know how you feel. And this resulted in plenty of pretty nasty confrontations. Famously, the one in the restaurant that got I believe is an African American Republican assaulted by white people because of what Maxine Waters said. She knows she's playing this. Yeah, she's a provocateur. It's kind of part of her political brand. But this was another example of that. And I got a couple things I want to bring in response to this. First of all, it was pointed out hilariously. This is over on townhall.com, which is a right-leaning outlet, but they had a fun little detail here. The headline being, Maxine Waters requested police escort before screed advocating for violence. Documents show. They actually have the documents here because she crossed state lines to come to this event and make this appearance. But let's see what it says here. New documents obtained by Town Hall show Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters requested an armed police escort to Minneapolis over the weekend, where she called for violent activists to stay in the streets during a protest against law enforcement. And they have the document here, the VIP document that you request from police organizations to get a police escort. So yes, she was worried enough where she needed a motorcade to visit these people to tell them to be more violent. So that's kind of cool. Good one.
I like how the risk factor in here, moderate.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting document. Not that interesting, but name of protectee Maxine Waters, title of protectee Congresswoman, risk factor moderate, tactical team. No.
Yeah. Number of cars in motorcade. 1.
Yeah. 1.
Just 1.
Special requests, selected values for special requests, special mobile lounge.
Oh, gosh. Need a lounge.
Yes.
Before I go out and confront the people.
It's basically a limousine, maybe. What is a special mobile lounge?
Police escort in and out. She wanted a burger. She wanted a cheeseburger with her police escort. Is that what that is?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, funny. Now, there's this thing to follow up over here on MSN.com, which is mirrored from the Washington Examiner. Pelosi was asked to respond to Maxine Waters' comments. Pelosi, no need for Maxine Waters to apologize because, quote, more confrontational call did not incite violence. We'll see, Pelosi. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that Representative Maxine Waters does not need to apologize and did not incite violence by calling to get more confrontational if police officer Derek Chauvin is not found guilty. Okay, this is being published before, well, I don't know. This came out an hour ago. So did they come to a conclusion of Chauvin's thing?
They must not have if this is what they're peddling.
Well, what I'm saying is...
Oh, because Pelosi said there's no violence?
There's no violence. Well, she doesn't know if there's no violence if they haven't found him guilty or not guilty. So, anyways.
Did you know the trial, by the way, just as a side note, the judge almost called it a mistrial. Because the prosecution didn't share some specific information to the defendants. Really interesting stuff. And usually the defendant will ask for a mistrial in that situation, but the judge threatened it. I was like, whoa, man, that's crazy. But I don't think that it was just a threat because obviously the prosecution didn't. They're not playing by the rules here, which is not surprising. But
they are making closing arguments today during the show, and I kind of have been having it pulled up, trying to keep an eye out. Let me look to see if there's any update.
When you start hearing gunshots outside, you'll know the results are in.
CBS here, Derek Chauvin trial, testimony complete now. This is from 4/15/21.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything right now at all. Yeah. So maybe they're filibustering.
Yeah, something, I don't know, keep an eye out. Somebody in the chat, if you get any news, let us know. But let's continue here. Quote, no, I don't think she should apologize, Pelosi told the Hill Pool on Monday. Maxine talked about confrontation in the manner of the civil rights movement. Okay, so there's a translation here. Asked whether the comments from Waters, a California Democratic Congresswoman, incite violence, Pelosi said, no, absolutely not.
No.
Waters this weekend traveled to Minnesota and joined in protests over the trial of Chauvin, who is charged with second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd, a black man, last year. If there is not a guilty verdict, Waters said, we've got to get more confrontational. Her comments prompted widespread outrage from Republicans and Chris Shilzilla. Don't forget, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said Sunday that Waters was inciting violence and warned that if Speaker Pelosi doesn't act against this dangerous rhetoric, I will bring action this week. Ooh, threats from Kevin McCarthy. Georgia Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said that she will introduce a resolution to expel Waters from the House, a threat that has also been used against the first-term GOP lawmaker. Quote, that woman on the floor should be apologizing for what she said, Pelosi told reporters, appearing to refer to Republican Michigan Representative Lisa McClain, who gave a speech on the House floor criticizing Waters after Pelosi opened Monday's session. Quote, I myself think we should take our lead from the George Floyd family. They've handled this with great dignity and no ambiguity or lack of or misinterpretation by the other side, Pelosi said. What? What does that have to do with anything?
She's drunk. Don't worry about it.
Waters, an 82-year-old Congresswoman who joined the House in 1991, has long been known for her incendiary statements. Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, and she had her shut your mouth comment recently, too. Anyway, so there you go. We will see if once this sentencing actually is done. I mean, the fact of the matter is, with or without Maxine Waters, Chauvin being found not guilty is going to end badly. So who knows if she is adding any incitement, but sure put her in a pickle if it does.
The goalposts are going to move regardless. They can say, second-degree murder or something like that, and they'll freak out. It's not first-degree murder. Whatever it is, it's always it's going to move. Right. People are going to flip.
There's no winning for anybody in this situation.
Yeah, whatever the reason, they're gonna go out and destroy, and those people are probably getting paid by Soros or someone.
Oh, you can't say that, guys.
Oh, I mean, a sore rose. Those roses that are sore. Which, by the way, there was a story we didn't cover today, but do you know Peloton, the company that Soros invested in? Mm-hmm. There was a story out about how there's like kids getting stuck under these Peloton things. One has died. 40 has gotten stuck under them.
From a Peloton?
Yes.
Because it's a big spinning wheel and a kid sticks their foot in it or something.
There's like video footage of a kid getting stuck under it, and it's pretty disturbing.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't include it. But that's out there. And
Peloton kills.
Peloton kills. Okay, so there you go. That's your Maxine Waters update. This one, we did have a Russia story real quick here.
Russia.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is from mirror.co.uk. Author killed by man who, quote, thought he was spy working with Putin to spread COVID.
What?
Yeah, the propaganda works, folks.
Yeah.
A children's author was shot and beaten to death by a neighbor who thought the victim was a spy working for Russian President Vladimir Putin to spread COVID-19, an inquest has heard. Alex Sartain, who had mental health issues, used a homemade double-barreled shotgun to shoot James Nash, 42, in the front garden of his home in Upper Enham near Andover, Hampshire, on August 5th, 2020. Oh, so it happened a while ago.
This is in England?
I think so, yeah. It's mirror.co.uk.
That's why he had to hand make a shotgun.
Yeah. Sartain, 34, then repeatedly stamped on the head of the parish councillor, causing him fatal head injuries, the Winchester inquest was told. The shotgun didn't do him. It was the kicking of the head. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Mr. Sartain himself died later that day when he crashed his motorcycle while being pursued by police. An inquest into his death will be held on Wednesday. Mr. Nash died 3 days later at Southampton General Hospital. And we don't have to get into the more details of the story, but I wanted to include this because, we don't hear too much of the consequences of a lot of the propaganda that's out there. And look at this breaking news: Livermore machete attack. Man in 20s has hand chopped off during horrendous assault.
Yeah, that's the problem. The knife problem in England. They got rid of guns, and lo and behold, the darkness of man expresses itself through knives.
Yeah, it's not the object of the killing. It's just the heart of man, the fallen nature.
Real quick, I did just see here the Chauvin case has gone to jury.
Okay, well, that was kind
jury
of expected.
Deliberation. Who knows how long that'll take?
Yeah, that's I don't know. It could take a while, It's free food for those juries.
Yeah, free food and $35 a day.
Free housing. But anyway, I thought I'd include this story because, again, we don't necessarily hear about the consequences of the propaganda unless it serves one side or the other of the political argument. And right now, obviously, a lot of it is in support with the left and the progressive side of the aisle, and anything that affirms that narrative is played out on media. But if it's the other side, if it's like, oh, they took the Russian propaganda a little too seriously, we don't hear about it too much.
Yeah.
But this is, again, in England, so I guess it's not directly pertaining to the U.S., but I thought I'd include it just to mention. And it's another Russia story, so I got to play the Russia jingle, which,
Russian propaganda is Russian propaganda.
Yeah, indirectly involved in this. You want to mention or just briefly go over this DeSantis thing here?
Yeah, DeSantis is really doing it up over there in
woke.
Florida.
Are you even woke?
Anti-woke.
This is coming from Yahoo News. The headline is DeSantis hints. Oh, Yahoo News just kicked me out. Why'd you do that? DeSantis hints at political consequences for companies that genuflect to wokeness, which is just a great way to put that. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis warned corporations against trying to genuflect to wokeness in comments on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures. When asked what he thought about Major League Baseball's decision to move the All-Star game away from Atlanta, Georgia, DeSantis hinted that corporations should expect some form of retaliation. MLB moved the All-Star game to Denver, Colorado in protest of Georgia's recently passed elections law that mandates photo identification from all voters, bans political groups from handing out food and water. You know what? We never really went over that to its full extent.
Yeah, but we did, though. We talked about how it was, not super deep.
It doesn't say that you can't hand out food and water. It bans, what is it called? It's a very specific term. It's not politicking or whatever. Basically, it bans political groups from handing out food and water at polling stations. No, it bans political groups from giving out anything because, yes, if you're a political group... No. If you're a political group giving out gifts in line to polls, that's illegal, and most states have laws against that. But anyways, and enacts various other measures. Quote, I guess they have the right to do what they want, but if you're going to stick your beak into issues that don't directly concern you, then I think elected officials are then going to stick their beak into issues that may not concern them.
Ducks confirmed.
What?
He's talking about beaks. They're all beaks.
Ducks confirmed?
Yeah, ducks have beaks, don't they? Okay, go on. Go on.
No. We're stopping the show, Gons. Are you calling DeSantis a duck?
No.
I will say this. He's an eagle, Gons.
Oh, he's a phoenix.
Patriot.
He's a phoenix. Ducks have bills. Okay.
Interesting little threat here. Hey,
sorry, ducks have bills, not beaks.
Oh my gosh!
I'm being corrected in the chat multiple times.
Podcast.
I'm just, for the sake of Susan. Sorry, Susan. Ducks. That's disinformation from my mouth.
Medical
ducks have
disinformation
beaks, they have bills.
about ducks.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's get back on track here.
Okay.
DeSantis, very interesting threat with DeSantis talking to corporations. Hey, corporations, if you get into politics, politicians are going to get into corporations, which is kind of funny. Quote, what about all the other jurisdictions that you're in that have, quote, more restrictive laws? DeSantis added, quote, what about the fact that you're doing business with the Communist Party of China, the fact that you've done business with the Castro regime in Cuba? DeSantis warned that corporate America, by trying to genuflect to this wokeness, they're going to tie themselves in knots trying to please the extreme left. The Georgia voting law was passed in the wake of President Trump's claims that Democrats stole the election via widespread voter fraud. Democrats, including President Biden, have criticized the Georgia law as an update on Jim Crow laws. I can't believe they are referring to Biden saying this. They're inadvertently bringing up Jim Eagle.
I know. Yeah,
wow.
Without saying Jim Eagle, they're basically, they're bringing it up.
And
That's
Biden was found to have spread disinformation about the Georgia laws too.
Mm-hmm.
He got fact checked by
Politico.
liberal outlets,
Politico.
by Politico.
Yeah.
Wow. Dummy.
Okay.
Hundreds of corporations signed a letter last week opposing discriminatory legislation that would make it harder to vote. Harder to vote. Yes. Okay. Having an ID makes it harder to vote. Makes it harder for ducks to wander into a polling station.
No, because no beaks. They don't have beaks. They have bills.
Oh my gosh. So there you go. DeSantis continuing to stand his ground on a lot of this stuff. Had you ever once paid attention to the governor of Florida until DeSantis came around?
Nope. He's probably looking for a ticket to the White House, or trying to anyway, with the Republican.
Well, there's certainly a lot of chatter about that.
Yeah. He's doing okay, winning the people over. He's saying all the right things to stoke
they
the
love
Trump,
him over there.
The Trump crowd. So that's all part of his tactic. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of Mr. President, former President Trump,
we will launch a new age.
New York Times, 100 days without Trump on Twitter. A nation scrolls more calmly. Subheading: Democrats are breathing easier. Republicans are crying censorship. For all the country's news consumers, a strange quiet has descended after a 4-year bombardment of presidential verbiage. That soothing sound that Gary Cavalli hears emanating from Twitter these days, it is the sound of silence. Specifically, the silence of former President Donald J. Trump. As if their world is Twitter.
It is.
It's interesting.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Quote, "My blood pressure has gone down 20 points, said Mr. Cavalli, 71, whose obsessive hate following of Mr. Trump ended for good when Twitter permanently barred the former president in January. Quote, "Not having to read his latest dishonest tweets has made my life so much happier." End quote. It seems like yesterday, or perhaps a lifetime ago, that Mr. Trump swaggered through the corridors of Twitter as if he owned the place, praising himself and denigrating his enemies in an endless stream of poorly punctuated, creatively spelled, factually challenged, all caps diatribes that inflamed, delighted, and terrified the nation to varying degrees. That all ended on January 8th, 2 days after a mob, egged on by his incendiary remarks, had stormed the United States Capitol in an ill-conceived effort to overturn the results of the presidential election. 100 days have now elapsed since the start of the ban, a move that raised questions for free speech and censorship in the social media age, upset pro-Trump Republicans, and further enraged a now former president who still refuses to accept the fact that he lost the election. To many of the former president's detractors, the absence of a daily barrage of anxiety-provoking presidential verbiage feels closer to a return to normalcy than anything else so far in 2021. Quote, "I legitimately slept better with him off Twitter," said Mario Marval, 35, a program manager and Air Force veteran in the Cincinnati area. Quote, "It allowed me to reflect on how much of a vacuum of my attention he became." Yeah, you think the mind control.
Can you imagine living a life where it gets that much better with a man off of Twitter?
This is a level of psychosis. I'm telling you,
it really is.
Have been just mind control is not even like a strong enough word. I don't think.
These deranged. It's the Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the sad part is that it's not the act of Trump tweeting that's really doing it to them. It's the media putting it in the echo chamber, echoing it, writing articles on articles and talking about it all the time. If they just let the guy tweet and nobody talked about it, these people would live much better lives. Yeah, wow, that is so sad.
Yeah, a couple more. I have some things highlighted here. For Matt Lease, 29, a music professor in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, the Twitter suspension was akin to a clearing of the air. Quote, it's like living in a city perpetually choked with smog, and suddenly one day you wake up and the sky is blue, the birds are singing, and you can finally take a full, non-toxic breath. It was very articulate, though. Yet for millions of Trump loyalists, his silence has meant the loss of their favorite champion and the greatest weapon in their fight against the left. Quote, I miss having his strong, conservative, opinionated voice on Twitter, said Kelly Klobes, 39, a business manager from southern Wisconsin. Quote, other people have been allowed to have free speech and speak their minds, and they haven't been banned. Unless you're going to do it across the board, you shouldn't do it to him. You know, I highlighted this because at the beginning of the paragraph where it quotes her, because, you know, they're trying to paint any Trump loyalist as crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they kind of start off, you think like, oh boy, it's going to be a crazy lady, you know? And then what she says is like, yeah, free speech should be for everybody. But then are people reading this in the New York Times like, oh, this crazy Trump loyalist thinks free speech should be for all? Like, why would they do? Like, it's just a weird way to paint the people who support Trump.
Well, and the sad part is that I think a lot of them are thinking that.
I know. Yeah.
They're just following the brainwashing. And yeah, you know, you set them up and say, this person's a Trump supporter. Listen to what they said. I believe in free speech and that people should be able to say what they want. Oh, she's a Trump supporter and loves free speech. Well, you know me. I've always hated free speech. I hate it. Don't even get it near me.
But how significant is the noise is another highlighted section here. I skipped a whole bunch of stuff. Many Republicans still seem to be hanging on Mr. Trump's every word, but others say that without Twitter or indeed the presidency, his voice has been rendered nearly impotent, much the way Alpha, the terrifying Doberman pinscher in the movie Up, becomes ridiculous when his electronic voice malfunctions, forcing him to speak with the Mickey Mouse-like voice of someone who has inhaled too much helium.
Wow, what a metaphor to draw.
I just think it's, out of all the metaphors you can really invoke for this, he chose Up. Like, why Up? Up is like the most innocent, you know, like feel-good movie.
Yeah, that's exactly why they choose it, you know, because it's a favorite. When you're so upset by Trump, you go watch Up. You know, you got to watch your Pixar, Disney mind control films.
The article ends here. Joe Walsh, a former Trump-supporting Republican congressman who is now an anti-Trump talk radio host, said that even some people who hate the former president are suffering from a kind of withdrawal. Their lives emptier now that Mr. Trump is no longer around to serve as a villainous foil for their grievances. We've been saying this. Yeah. Quote, I completely get that it's cool and hip to say, I'm going to ignore the former guy. There's a lot of performance art around that. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But a lot of people miss being able to go after him or talk about him every day, he said. Mm-hmm. Quote, we're all so tribal and we want to pick our tribes, and Trump made that dividing line really easy. Where do you stand on Biden's infrastructure plan? That's a little more nuanced. I like how Biden's topics are more nuanced than Trump's. I mean, yes, he's right that Trump made everything more divisive in a way, but I wouldn't necessarily call Biden's anything nuanced. It's like a way to, highlight the
or just like way too nuanced that he and nobody else actually knows what point he's trying to make.
Yeah, nuance to oblivion.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is I just thought it was a fascinating look at, they just can't not talk about Trump. And it's funny because that last paragraph is proved by this article itself from the New York Times. We're celebrating 100 days without Twitter. Let's find out how everyone's feeling. You know?
Yeah.
It's like they just prove the point of the very thing that the guy says at the end there. They can't live without Trump. And so anyway, it's the irony of it all is...
Twitter is real life, man.
I guess.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's catch up on some of this gun control stuff, and then I think we are probably running out of time here. We might need more speed through some stuff.
Getting late.
I'll
got
open it up.
What? What?
I was going to open it up.
Okay, well, I got a gun control jingle that I made.
Oh, cool. Let's hear it.
Gun violence is an epidemic.
Yeah. Ooh, nice one. Love it.
It's an epidemic.
You're still the master jingle maker, Gons. Play it again.
Hold on, let me see. Hold on, stuff's gonna play on Yahoo. All right, here it is.
Gun violence is an epidemic.
Gun violence is an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, we got a clip of Fauci on gun violence. How can you say that's not a public health issue? Here's the clip from CNN.
Before I let you go, I want to ask about another epidemic in the U.S., and that is gun violence. 8 people were shot and killed in a mass shooting in Indianapolis on Thursday night. The U.S. has reported 47 mass shootings in just over a month. You've worked in public health broadly for a long time. Is gun violence in the U.S. a public health emergency?
Leading the witness.
You know, myself as a public health person, I think you can't run away from that. I mean, when you see people getting killed, I mean, in this last month, it's just been horrifying what's happened. How can you say that's not a public health issue?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see this weird ear scratch thing? I don't know if you noticed it.
No.
Some body language person can break down. When he was asked this question, he right before he answered, he scratched his left ear.
I've seen that before. You know what it is he's probably has his in-ear monitor. Somebody's feeding him the answer.
You think that's what it is?
It's possible. I mean, it's not unheard of in the news. All news people wear those in-ear communicators.
Yeah, although he's scratching behind his ear. Maybe it's one of those like cochleal thingies, that's not in your ear directly, but it can.
Well, or it's just a tick, you got somebody suddenly, because he has an extremely long pause after that question. So, he's kind of sitting there hearing some advice from somebody on the other end, and maybe it's just sort of a natural reaction. You reach up and scratch your ear just because it's a weird pause. I don't know. Play it again.
All right, here's a question.
For a long time, is gun violence in the U.S. a public health emergency?
Myself.
It's about 5 Mississippis.
Yeah, and you kind of the shuffling you hear there is him reaching up to his ear to scratch it. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe some body language experts can break that one down. I'm no body language expert. So
well, of course, infamous weapons expert Anthony Fauci has got to speak on whatever it is we believe he's an expert in now.
Well, the syringe is technically a violent weapon.
Well, what this is it's proving that the COVID storyline is losing steam, so we need to switch over to the gun violence storyline. Got to keep the boogeyman a-rolling. And, they've worked so hard to build Fauci up as an expert over the last year. It would be a shame to not let that sort of idolatry to not put that idolatry to use. You already have him, lifted up as Daddy Fauci, the father of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everybody pays attention to him, whether you love him or hate him. You pay attention to him. So they're gonna use him for every new narrative or repeating narrative rather, that they want to use to gain attention. And that's exactly what this is.
It's like the opposite of the Trump thing where they wanted Trump gone and they can't stop talking about him, but with this it's like we don't want him to leave even though the pandemic's over, so everybody get your vaccines because it'll stop the shootings. That's like almost what he's saying.
That is the connection to wait for.
Yeah.
And if anybody was going to put out the connection, it would be him.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of connect. That's something to look out for, folks, as you go into the coming weeks, as this cycle of gun violence attention continues. Watch out for Fauci making some sort of link between getting the vaccine and ending the gun violence.
Yeah, some statistical sociological analysis, which he's not a sociologist, but he'll go ahead and just do that anyway. The data shows...
the data shows that
people who are vaccinated are less likely to die of a gun wound, or less likely to be involved in a mass shooting.
Well, kind of how they connect everything to climate change.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing this one down on the prediction list. Fauci will use
vaccinations will somehow reduce gun violence. Or some connection between those two things.
There's some connection. Okay. All right. Noted.
Okay, good.
19th,
oh, look at us.
2021.
Look at you taking initiative and actually writing down
I know.
some of these.
We have so many that we might as well, I have the doc open, so might as well start documenting these, and maybe we'll make it public once the website's up there.
I already forgot the one from last episode. Did you write that one down too?
Robot dopamine to keep slave robots happy.
Robot dopamine.
Yeah.
I'm giving that one at least a 5-year time limit, but at least it's on the thing.
It's on the list.
Fun.
All right.
Let's see. Before we moved on, this alert did come up. Actually, this is thanks to Sharon Gilbert. Just tweeted this. Hi, Sharon. Is a Daily Mail article, and maybe we'll cover it. Let's save it for next episode. Yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday. We'll put this on the list for Wednesday.
What is it? I want to know. Tease it.
Kiss goodbye to foreign travel. State Department plans do not travel advisories for 80% of countries due to COVID. So they're locking down international travel.
That's
and there's some really interesting details in there, but we'll need to talk about it, and we need to end this episode. So I'm going to save it.
Okay.
So let's keep on going with the gun control thing here. Of course, we all have heard that there was a shooting in Texas immediately after Texas took the next step in having an unlicensed carry laws. If you're 21, you can conceal or open carry with no license. It's not completely passed, I don't believe, but it made it to the next step. And right on cue, we had a shooting in Austin, Texas. So this is coming from MSN, mirroring from Newsweek. Stephen Broderick. Oh, and just a little detail after this happened, it was extremely difficult to find an article that gave us the name of the suspect, and you'll learn why. Stephen Broderick, Austin, Texas, shooting suspect, an ex-police officer caught after scene on roadside. A manhunt for Stephen Broderick, a 41-year-old man, concluded on Monday morning when authorities apprehended him for allegedly fatally shooting 3 people a day earlier. Broderick, a former deputy sheriff, wanted in connection to Sunday's shooting in Austin, Texas. The shooting occurred at an apartment complex, and authorities initially placed the area on a shelter-in-place order, but lifted the precautionary measure when they determined it was a domestic situation and not active shooter situation. Austin's interim. Now, that alone, as a detail, was left out of almost all articles about this, that it was a domestic situation and not an active random mass shooting event. But it wasn't until today that it got recategorized. Austin's interim police chief Joseph Chacon first identified Broderick as the suspect on Sunday. Again, he was identified 2 days ago, could not find a single article that mentioned this, saying, quote, all the victims were known to him. While they no longer believed it to be an active shooter situation, Chacon warned that Broderick was considered armed and very much dangerous. Quote, we do not think this individual is out targeting random people to shoot them. Chacon said, quote, we are transitioning from a search in this area to a fugitive search. He continues to pose a threat to this community. Officers apprehended him near Manor, Texas, after they received a 911 call about a man walking along a road. The Austin Police Department told KEYE-TV. Broderick was taken into custody without incident. Elgin Independent School District Superintendent Jody Duran identified one of the victims as, and then it goes into the victim. It's not that much longer. One of the victims as Alyssa Broderick, who attended classes from 2009 to October 2020. Attended classes for 11 years? Oh, in the whole district. Okay. Willie Simmons III, a senior at Elgin High School, was also killed on Sunday. Quote, he was an exceptional young man and leader among his peers, Duran said of Simmons in a statement. Quote, strong both academically and athletically, he represented the very best of Elgin ISD. He was the captain of our football team, a friend to everyone he met. As of now, it's unclear what the connection between the suspect and the two victims is. Well, it can't be that unclear. He has the same last name as one of them, but okay. Broderick was a detective for the Travis County Sheriff's Office, but resigned last summer after he was arrested for sexual assault of a child, Kristen Dark, the Travis County Sheriff's spokesperson told the Austin American-Statesman. Broderick was released on a $50,000 bond, and Travis County District Attorney Jose Garza said in a statement that his office filed paperwork to revoke the bond. Newsweek reached out to Austin Police Department for comment, but did not receive a response in time for publication. Court records show that Broderick's wife, Amanda, filed for divorce and protective order after he was arrested. According to USA Today, he was prohibited from going within 200 yards of their daughter and was able to visit the son for 4 hours 1 weekend a month. Quote, I'm afraid he will try to hurt me or my children because these allegations have come out and he may lose his career, she wrote in the request for the protective order, USA Today reported. Stephen has prior military experience and is SWAT trained. If he wanted to hurt someone, he would know how. As part of his bail conditions, according to USA Today, Broderick had to surrender his firearms and agree to not obtain any new ones. So, you saw the hubbub about this shooting on Sunday and Monday, I assume?
Yes, on social media. And people on Twitter, another shooting. We must get rid of the guns. But, of course, the narrative. And of course, connecting it again, like I said, to the concealment bill going through, or the firearm. I don't know what they're calling it. I should know, but I don't. The bill going through the Texas legislature there, and yes. So this is what happens when we don't restrict guns, when we respect the Second Amendment. More shootings occur. And it reminded me of the thing that kicked off the Asian hate thing, which recently haven't heard a lot about the Asian hate thing, but where the elderly woman that was assaulted by a black man who had just gotten out of prison for killing his mother in 2014 and was, a crazy person. And that, kicked off the social justice movement. Well, in a similar way, we have a former detective, child rapist from the SWAT team. Again, he's a non-white person, as they might say or won't say on the mainstream media, who is obviously in a very distressing situation, and there's no way to justify what he did, but it's just one of these things. Sometimes people snap and go nuts. It's not because they're mind controlled by an inanimate object. Or that they're racist. Yes. And that was the thing about this is, they knew who this guy was from the very beginning. It was a domestic issue, but it was incredibly difficult. First of all, incredibly difficult to find an article that mentioned his name, even more difficult to find an article that had a picture of him. And yes, of course, when we find both of those things, it becomes more difficult to connect it to social justice issues. Yep, and so while this shooting will go as a tally, underneath the number of shootings that have taken place, right? The details will not be of importance as they peddle the propaganda there, or the narrative, so to speak.
And interestingly enough, again in the reporting, I keep hearing this being called a mass shooting. This was not a mass shooting by the official federal definition of 4 people shot, not including the shooter. This was 2 people shot, which, again, not justifying it, still horrible. The guy's going to get it, especially in Texas with capital punishment, a capital punishment state. But not technically a mass shooting. But that doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people, because definitions and math are racist.
Yeah, and just to wrap things up for the show here, why are we having so many mass shootings? Mass shootings are up nearly 73% so far in 2021 in what gun violence researchers describe as a contagion effect.
I don't think that's true. I think there's a lie in that math somewhere.
This is insider.com. And just, to the point of our little prediction there about Fauci connecting the pandemic to the gun violence, I did see the story of the kids, the elementary schools in Minneapolis, anticipating the verdict today, went back to remote learning. So basically, Zoom calls.
Oh, brought the kids home because of the riots.
How convenient is that? Just, hey guys, we're used to the in-home learning. Just go home. Just stay safe, things might get out of hand. That is a very convenient situation there.
Well, and it works in 2 ways, because not only do you, protect the children from rioters by keeping them home, but you keep the parents home because they got to take care of the kids.
Right. All right, let's see what this article states here. It says 3.5 months into 2021, mass shootings in the U.S. have increased nearly 73% from the same period last year, and gun violence researchers say each new shooting is likely to spark another in a contagion effect.
Of course, everything's a pandemic.
Everything just spreads like it's like a virus in the air. You breathe a gun event, a shooting event, and you're going to want to do one too.
Yeah, wear your mask or else you'll want to commit a shooting.
You'll breathe in gun violence.
Yeah, again, it barely needs to be pointed out, but of course this is taking advantage of the neuro-linguistic programming that's been going on for over a year.
Yes. There have been 147 mass shootings in the U.S. since New Year's Day, compared to 85 such incidents between January 1st and April 16th, 2020.
I'm sorry, I tuned out. What was that first number? Read that whole thing again.
147 mass shootings in the U.S. since New Year's Day, compared to 85 such incidents between January 1 and April 16th, 2020, which means Trump's America was safer than Biden's America.
That's a good point. Wait a second. So Trump protected us from over 60 mass shootings.
Yeah. A mass shooting is defined in the database as an incident where 4 or more people were shot, not including the shooter. Mass shootings in 2021 also have been deadlier than early last year. According to the Gun Violence Archive, 176 people have been killed so far this year, compared to 92 during the same period in 2022. Quote, "It is a disease, violence, and it is contagious."
We better get Fauci in on this.
Dr. Gary Slutkin. Sorry. Oh, it's getting late in the show. I'm losing my composure. Gary Slutkin.
Okay.
Former head of the World Health Organization's Intervention Development Unit, told Insider. Yeah, I don't know, but he's WHO. The point being WHO. Quote,
"Oh, yeah, of course.
One event is a risk factor for another event, just like one event of COVID is a risk factor for another event of COVID." Our prediction is coming true right before our eyes. We don't even need to wait. I don't even know what that means. How does... Okay. This talking point is coming to Fauci at some point.
I'm so sorry. It's the end of the show. I'm losing my mind. Say that again.
Quote, this is Dr. Gary Slutkins, from former head of the WHO Intervention Development Unit. Quote, "One event is a risk factor for another event, Just like one event of COVID is a risk factor for another event of COVID, he added.
I would love to know what the science is behind that.
Oh, I know the science.
It's Newsome science, baby!
That does sound like Newsome science.
In recent weeks, coverage of one deadly shooting often has been interrupted by breaking news of another. Okay, so March, the Asian women, on Thursday, FedEx. Research shows the timing of these incidents isn't likely a coincidence, Slutkin said. Since the more people see violence and take it in as normal, the more likely they are to commit violence themselves. Okay, quote, we know historically there's a strong copycat phenomenon with high-profile mass shootings, Dr. Jonathan M. Metzel, director of the Center for Medicine, Health, and Society at Vanderbilt University, Nashville, told Insider, quote, and so when there's one in the news, it tends to spur a number of copycat events, so people feel a contagion effect. One leads to another, leads to another.
This is complete poppycock.
I'm marking that, for instance, for the intro of the show of you taking in a deep breath and mentioning how it's all poppycock.
This is complete poppycock. This makes no... Okay, so...
Here. They're basically admitting that the news media is propaganda and mind control for the masses to replicate what they are being shown and repeat it and be parrots, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. The more... it goes back to the Trump on Twitter thing.
Yeah.
It's not about Trump tweeting. It's about the mainstream media radicalizing the population around those tweets. And it's the same thing with these shooting events. One happens, it becomes the most famous event it consumes people's minds, and it goes from there. I don't believe it, but I hear what they're saying and I understand the logic. But I don't know what the connection would be between a man who goes on a rampage in massage parlors because he's again, admittedly, has mental issues. And what would be the connection between that and this guy being left by his wife and shunned by his community and a criminal, a child rapist, and then shooting what seems to be one of his relatives and what I'm assuming is a romantic situation with a football star.
Yeah. Let me move on because he explains why Trump's America was safer than this year. Quote, this is a lot of people who are on edge, having the means to do something and seeing that other people are doing it, he added. Slutkins told Insider that while rage shooting have been on the rise for decades, the COVID-19 pandemic briefly interrupted the trend in 2020, making the violence of recent weeks even more jarring. Quote, people were not in churches, parking lots, shopping stores.
It's a lie.
Slutkins said
it's a straight-up lie. Shootings were up 35% in 2020. There was no break in shootings in 2020. And this guy is outright lying to spread his poppycock ideas.
Let me finish what Slutkin said here. Quote, there were just less people in public places, so it's just resuming. End quote.
No, it's not. You're lying. It's unscientific. You're not looking at the numbers. You're just talking out your butt because you're being interviewed, and you got to have something to say, and you got to spread some poppycock narrative that you're getting paid for somehow.
Against the backdrop of increasing mass shootings, gun violence researchers point out little has been done to prevent the next one from happening. Slutkins said addressing mass shootings through gun laws relies so heavily on the cooperation of political figures that his organization, Cure Violence Global, seeks to reduce violence by embedding in communities. Okay.
What does that mean? Embedding in communities? You have sleeper agents? In neighborhoods? What are you talking about?
The organization works around the world to establish, quote, interruption networks.
snitches,
quote unquote,
snitch networks and
interruption
communities.
networks of outreach workers who put an ear to the ground for discussions of violence and attempt to stop it. Oh, they're just such wonderful citizens of the earth.
They've got a snitch network. They've got Fagin's boys running around keeping ears to doors.
This interruption practice drops shootings and killings between 40 and 70%, Sluckin said. Based on what? Where are they coming up with that number?
Complete hogwash. This guy is just a liar. He's a WHO stooge. He's just saying things that he doesn't think anybody has looked at the numbers for and hoping nobody fact checks him.
But nothing similar has been established for mass shootings. Okay, so he's saying no, he says shootings and killings. Okay, wait a minute. Interruption practice drops shootings and killings between 40% and 70%, Slutkin said, but nothing similar has been established for mass shootings. Okay, so mass shootings. So regular shootings and killings, the snitch system brings it down 40 to 70%.
Your snitches don't report potential mass shootings?
It's just, there's a hole, there's a gap.
They hear about a plan to shoot 4 or more people and just don't report it? This is making me mad. This guy is complete nonsense.
I like it when you get mad. It's funny. According to the Gun Violence Archive, at least 12,417 people have died from gun violence so far this year in the U.S., and at least 6,996 of them died by suicide. Gun violence researchers say laws requiring a waiting period for purchasing a gun cut down the number of lost lives in both mass shootings and suicides. The suspect in the Atlanta and Boulder mass shooting bought their guns within days of those attacks. Quote, obviously, that cannot prevent all acts of violence or self-harm, but there is good research that shows that it does lead to reductions in both suicides and homicide by preventing more impulsive, heat-of-the-moment acts of violence. Ari Freilich, the state policy director at the Giffords Law Center, told Insider, Metzel believes passing gun laws, including background checks and they already have background checks. I don't understand why they keep bringing that up.
They keep going back to this background check thing.
And bans on high-capacity magazines. What difference does that make
for a shooter? It doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
Will also cut down on gun violence casualties.
No, it won't.
Quote, it's important to remember at times like this that we have over 40,000 gun deaths a year, Metzel said. So there are plenty of policies we can announce that will lower rates of everyday gun death. It's not so much, oh, this one policy is going to stop mass shootings, but we can save more lives by enacting common sense policies. There's that word again, common sense. It's all just common sense until somebody comes at you with a machete and chops off people's hands and heads in a grocery store. And don't tell me about just, okay. All right, now you got me fired up, so we need to calm down here. But yeah.
How many deaths did they say? 12,000?
12,471, if I recall my brain on. Yeah, right. 12,417. Well,
excessive alcohol is responsible for 100,000 deaths a year. I'm seeing here on the CDC. Right. So we need to enact common sense laws. Like maybe we should put an age restriction on alcohol.
That's a good idea.
That's common sense.
Yeah.
And then we can bring those down.
And don't you can't like operate a vehicle or anything when you're.
Yeah. Don't drive when you have the alcohol, and that seems common sense. We should pass that law.
That's a good one.
Let's go over here to tobacco-related mortality. Let's see, more than 480,000 deaths annually.
We should
yikes.
Put a label on the box or something.
Yeah, 500,000. Maybe we should put some common sense age restriction on cigarettes.
Yeah, a warning label or something.
Yeah,
just make sure
warning label. Yeah, if people only knew that cigarettes were bad for them, we could save 500,000 deaths a year from cigarettes. This is just making me mad. All right.
For those of you still listening or watching, do make sure to download the RSS version of this, because you will start the episode with Basil's deep inhale and scream, "This is poppycock." I love it.
All right. Well, anything. Sorry. What else is there to hear?
There's not anything else.
Spew from this man.
That's it. This is the Insider article, and I'm hoping people are better informed after us reading this article. what people are
We got to
saying.
keep an eye on this guy. This is a World Health Organization guy, you said?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So no, he's former. So I guess he moved on to his Dr. Gary Slutkins. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, interesting that this comes out from the former WHO guy, and of course we see this trickling down directly to Fauci, where we saw the kind of power that can be wielded by the government over the people when it's put in the context of a contagion.
Yeah.
So we just got to put the gun thing into a contagion context, and we can disarm the people. It worked really well for Canada. Canada got their guns taken away, and their government really respects them now. And same with Australia. So no problems.
Yep.
And alcohol and cigarettes. Let's think about what we can do to make some things more reasonable as far as those killers go.
I'm sure the Dr. Gary Slutkins was given Daddy Fauci's number, and he'll be making a call soon to let him know how to address the situation and stay in the public eye and inform people to protect them from the deadly virus called guns.
The gun virus. Well, on that note, Gons, I think it's time.
Time to what? End the show? Yes. I'm sweating over here. It's very warm.
It's time to be done. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate that. And remember, we will be back on April 21st. That's on Wednesday. Now, if you are on YouTube, listen to my words. Don't click away. Please listen to me. We do not know when another strike will come. It could be right after this episode. Please do not count on YouTube to catch the show. Go right now. Follow us at twitch.tv/Canary Cry Radio. If you don't like Twitch, that's okay. Head over to DLIVE.tv/Canary Cry Radio. Head over to canarycrynewstalk.com. Click on an episode. Join the mailing list. When you click on an episode, there'll be a mailing list thing to join there. And of course, more than anything, you need to follow the podcast feed. So pick your favorite podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Search for Canary Cry News Talk and subscribe. I can't keep warning you people. You saw this last week. We can disappear at any moment. So go follow us other places. And if you want to make sure to hear about it, if we do get kicked off of anything, head over to Twitch. Follow me on Twitch, Basil_Rosewater. Of course, Gons at Face Like the Sun, Canary Cry Radio, all those places.
You mean
I don't
Twitter?
want to get any more. What?
You said Twitch. You mean Twitter?
Twitter. Yeah, sorry, Twitter. Yeah, do that on Twitter. Just that's how you're gonna know if you're missing the show or not. Okay, there we go. We said it. But you should follow us in all those places because we'll be back on Wednesday. Can't wait to see you there. And remember, you can become a producer of the show. Nay, you should become a producer of the show. You've heard this episode is a little light. We thank all of our producers so much. It's the only reason the show is able to continue. So make sure to thank a producer today, right there in the chat. Give them a call, send them a letter, thank a producer. They're the only reason we're able to keep doing the show. And if you want to make sure that the show keeps going, please consider becoming a producer. You can do that by heading to patreon.com/CCNT, or even better, head on over to canarycryradio.com/support.
Oh, yes, that is my cue.
CanaryCryRadio.com/support. That's right. Canary Cry
Multitasking
Radio
over here.
CanaryCryRadio.com/support. Go there, become a producer, or else, I don't know, just or else. But there's other ways to produce the show. If financially supporting the show is not in the cards for you, you can create jingles, create art, all of that important stuff. Send that to our email at canarycryradio@gmail.com if you like it easy, or canarycryradio@protonmail.com if you like it private, if you like to keep it a secret. We appreciate all of our artists and all of our musicians for jingles and art today. And I want to thank all of our producers for today as well. This episode of Canary Cry News Talk 326. Big thanks to Joe H., Brandon J., Shield Labs, James, Tristan, Kimberly, Stefan, and Sigra the Beast. Thank you very much for supporting the show. And of course, thank you to all of our artists, musicians, and producers in other capacities. You guys are the best. If you haven't done it yet, just share the show. That's a great way to help out the show. Costs you nothing and is so easy. Share the show out on your social media. Help people find the show. It could be this episode, could be a different episode. Just hit the little share button, post the link on your Twitter, your Facebook, whatever it is. Just helps get the word out, and it's needed more now than ever. Try not to lead people only to the YouTube also. Let them know about the podcast version and everything. Let's see here. Ratings and reviews. Ratings and reviews are also very important. Head over to Apple Podcast. A rating, that's a star thing. Give us 5 stars and a review. Tell people what it's like to experience the wonderful world of Canary Cry. And other than that, just let other humans know around you. We like to call it rattling cages. And if you need any more instructions, here's what you do. You walk right up to them, you grab them by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. All right, folks. Remember, we will be back on Wednesday, April 21st. We'll see you there. Gons, any last words?
The calendar is showing that today is the shot heard around the world. The Waco, Texas Davidson complex burning, the anniversary of 1993. And then 95 was the Oklahoma City bombing. But yeah, forgot to mention all that. But yeah, tomorrow, 420, Hitler's birthday, Doge Day. Don't get too crazy, folks.
That's right. Okie dokie, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
Come on, man.
Boy, it's really a productive segment, man.
Aborted feces.
Call that. Everybody loves waffles.
Look it up.
And melt those babies into candles.
Who were made by the aliens?
Aliens?
Who were made by the aliens?
He's a Satanist.
Who were made by the aliens?
We are indeed fake.
Are you even woke?
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I want to shake things up, shake things up. I want to shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone. I want to stir up some controversy. I want to rattle a few cages. I want to rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Little guy. Little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
Fun fact, I believe it was another fun fact. Fun fact. Another fun fact.
Brings me back to my Screamo days.
In the future, humans will be confined in a people's zoo.
People, I'll keep you safe and warm in my people's zoo.
Everybody loves waffles.
I'll keep you safe and warm now in my people's zoo.
Demonic power!
You, yeah, you in my people's zoo. I'll keep the cameras on.
Science is truth.
I'll keep the cameras on now in my people's zoo.
They are scum.
You, yeah, you in my people's zoo.
You can't handle the truth.
Congratulations.
Are you even woke?
We're more than feces.
Keep yapping, man.
I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo.
We're made by the aliens.
I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo.
Sinful generation!
People's zoo.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths.